Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, certified brewhead.
And I am Nathan from NathanDoesBeer.
You certainly are. And welcome to episode 135 of Beer and Other Shit, the podcast, Adjunct series. Nate, we've done it again. We have another banger. Do we ever not have a banger?
Yes, we do. No, we never don't have a banger. But now we're doing one of these things where we're bringing back a previous guest, which I'm really excited about.
Yes, we do that from time to time. I always find it fun to check back in with folks, usually within a year or two, because, things change. Beer is a fast-paced industry. Things happen quickly here. This one was 4 years, almost to the day, at least to the release day of recording, that we did the last one, which is crazy. So the original episode for this one was episode 114 of the original in-person series. That's how long ago it was. So, it's great to have the guy back. This brewery and this gentleman are definitely one of the most renowned in Ontario, and I feel they're one of the still the most underrated and under talked about breweries in their category. When I say category, I guess I'm referring to kind of like that hype world. They've been pumping out consistent fire for a long time, and I'm excited. This is one of the episodes Nate and I were talking earlier via text that I have to control myself, because this is the times where sometimes you're just throwing them down. So I'm gonna behave, Nate. I promise. Okay, I'll do my best. You behave too, goddamn.
Yeah.
Okay, promise. All right, guys, please welcome Jordan from Rouge River in the building. There he is. Welcome.
Hey.
You drippy gentleman. Good to see you again, bro.
That's right. Yes. Good to be here.
Happy to have you back. Apologies that it has been 4 lengthy years between conversations. It is ridiculous, and but we're making up for it. Goddammit! So I'm very happy to have you back. Very excited to hear what's been happening. 4 years is a long time. The last obviously 3 years were bonkers. So I feel like it's going to be super interesting. Very excited, man. So thank you again for taking the time.
Absolutely. Like you said, with COVID, it feels like it was like just yesterday, because 3 years just kind of disappeared on us all. So
totally, it's kind of wild.
Sitting down the other day,
right? Seriously, man. It's like we were trying to remember the year. We had to look for it today to figure out what year it was. So, we're gonna actually kick off. We have a fantastic lineup of beers tonight that we're all excited about. The first beer is something that you've, at the time of the previous recording, you hadn't done before. Tell us how we're setting this bad boy off tonight.
Yeah. So we're gonna crack Ridges. If you guys got that can right there,
we sure
got the
do.
metallic label on that bad boy.
Ooh, look
Very
at it.
flashy, as we all know.
It's a good-looking label.
Yes.
Sexy.
Yeah, so we were Rouge River House of Artisan Ales, and that's still actually on the building as a sign. Awesome. We definitely stole that from, some other breweries you might imagine that have that motto, but it was kind of what we did. We focused on ales exclusively for, the first 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had to begrudgingly make lager for the people.
Okay. Are you a lager guy typically?
No. I'm getting converted. I'm getting converted slowly. I used to get really offended by the term that lagers were brewers' beers, and I was like, well, I'm not a brewer because it's not my thing. Call me a janitor then, because I'm no brewer. But I mean, it's been talked about for a while, and I think there's some discussion, out there of this year's the year of the lager, and it's it's kind of never quite exactly it's never quite come, but I think it's definitely still at this point you kind of need to do something in this category, and you need to make it, obviously if I'm going to make something, like I said, I was not particularly a lager fan, a lager drinker. Like pale ale was my lager basically. So it's like,
That's
you
fair.
know, if we're, but I was like, with anything that we do or I do, you know, personally or for the business, it's like if I'm going to do something, it's going to be the best possible thing that it could be. So there's definitely been a journey of, you know, just you know, reworking the recipe, tweaking. And so yeah, so we've been making this for about 2 years now,
Okay.
I want to say. Um, and so yeah, this is kind of where it is today. You guys taste it yet?
No,
Give
we're
it a
waiting for the
little
cheers.
try? I'm gonna pour virtual
Cheers, y'all. Is this
Cheers.
this is the
Cheers.
haziest lager I've ever seen? Is that
Yeah, I was gonna say that too.
Yeah, we kind of like package it
hell yeah?
a little bit like unfiltered, and then depends if you like shake it up or not shake it up, if it moves a lot before you pour it. But mine's like more clear.
Yes, definitely more
I
clear
don't know if
there.
that's like
Mhm.
I might have a different batch than you. This is the newer batch, but yeah, the can tends to settle a little bit. So it's like if you leave the last little bit in the can, it's not as hazy. But let's just say we don't have a filter.
Yes, which makes
Right.
sense.
We don't. Yeah, so there is some sediment in the bottom of the cans. So
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. What? So that is just from like the unfiltered side of the process in a lager.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's just kind of, I don't know. Our beers just want to be hazy. I think that's just
Yeah.
nature.
That could be the episode,
They've seen
man.
the beers that have come out for the past 6.5 years, and they're just like, I want to be like them. So we have to struggle not to make everything hazy. But
Hey man.
yeah, we don't have an actual filter, so we kind of we filter with finings basically, so that just drops stuff out, but it's not always like a perfect situation. It's a little bit,
I
touch
love
and
it.
go.
Yeah, man. No, look, it tastes. It's like it's strange in that. Obviously, I mean these were shipped, so that's probably why. And I know I carried them downstairs, and I probably shook it up more than I intended to. But it's like it tripping me out because it tastes like a pilsner, but it doesn't look like one. It's got
Yeah.
the nose of
Yeah,
a pilsner.
the haze.
It's got that big bready nose.
100%.
It's nice and
Sure
crisp.
100%.
So this is this is a German style pilsner. Do you know
100%.
the what hops was this like SARS, something like that?
We were on Saws for quite some time. That was the hop, and then we just switched to like Hallertau Mittelfrüh. Is kind
Okay.
of our new standard hop for this beer for now. That's kind of our big one. But yeah, we did go through a Saws phase. I would say we were in a big Saws phase, but for now this is where it's at. So I don't know if you want to hear about the recipe like a little bit.
Oh, I'd love to.
Is that what we talk about on this show?
Yes. Oh, we get nerdy on this, bro. Go as deep as you like.
All right. Yeah, so it's kind of fun actually. If you try this beer, and this is why you should be savvy on Instagram, because that's where we spill all the juicy secrets. But a lot of our customers, they don't necessarily follow that. They're just like, oh, bridges, and they don't realize we're constantly tweaking a million things behind the recipe. But I've had, like, for me, like, lager is a simplistic kind of thing. You know what I mean? That it's hard to reinvent the wheel, which is kind of why
Yes.
I was not driven towards them. It's like there is a perfect kind of lager profile, and obviously there's a lot of subjectivity around what exactly that might be, and that is a point. What's the yeast profile, what's the sulfur, what's the how much maltiness, how much hoppiness. That's but to me, and before I kind of got into making it, I was like, it's all kind of the same shit, like, come on. But as you get into it, of course, it's like, the more nuanced you want to get into anything, it's like, obviously there's differences with every tweak you kind of make. So
Of course, yeah.
I guess one of the focuses has been just like different base malts, and because this style, as we know, it's got some hop to it. There's no dry hop in this beer.
Okay.
It's all just like kettle hopping. Pretty standard, like 40 IBU, 3 editions. There's a 60-minute, a 15, a 1 minute. That's kind of it. So it is kind of a yeast and malt focused beer, which has not. I mean, yeast is always part of hazy IPAs, which has been my focus for quite some time. But the malt does have a really big impact as opposed to like a hazy IPA, where it's important, but it's not gonna make or break the beer necessarily. Depending on what you do. So we've probably gone through, I want to say like 10 or 12 different base malts on this beer over the past like 2 years, which is kind of how I have fun with it. That's how I keep myself entertained.
I guess that makes sense. The different base malts are the hops of the lager world. That's where you can really play and like switch things up.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then
different, doing some Canadian stuff. We've done no English stuff, but there's a lot of German options out there. There's some Czech options, some French options. There's Belgian options. Not that we've done any like Belgian stuff, but there is a lot of options out there. So that's how I've kept myself entertained is just kind of testing different stuff. But I will say, long story short-ish, this is one of my favorite malts for Pilsner that we've come across, and it is the Weyermann floor malted Bohemian Pilsner malt. It's kind of been our king of malt. It's definitely not cheapest. It's probably one of the most expensive. And yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard of that malt, or I can talk about it a little bit.
Is that the red overalls one?
Yeah, Weyermann, they got the they're like the white and red bag. It's pretty iconic if you see it, if you visit breweries, it's the white and red bag, But yeah, it's a floor malted malt, so they actually like do it in a traditional style on a concrete floor. They got rakes, they got dudes in boots that presumably they clean and stepping over the malt and raking it to turn it by hand as opposed to doing it by machine.
Amazing.
So it's definitely like a romantic story. It's like how they used to make malt back in the day. They didn't have these big mechanical turners to like dry the malt with, these big turbines. It was just like a dude with a rake just walking around.
Interesting. I always wondered what the floor malt. I feel like I don't know if we've ever really gone deep into what that meant. So it's literally what, a concrete floor, a wooden floor where it's heated, and someone's manually doing, like it's a sauna in there or something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a sauna. And full disclosure, I've never been to a floor malting facility, but you see pictures of like I said, like a dude with a rake. But yeah, so like in the malting process, when you're making the barley, like making malt, you have your barley malt, you harvest it. It's just a raw barley. You can't use that in brewing directly. It needs to be processed or like malted to make it usable. Unless you want to have like a 12-hour brew day, which most people don't, they want it to be a little faster. So that malting process, they germinate the grain, and then there's a drying process. And that's typically what they call like a kilning, or like the drying step. So it gets sprouted, right? And that converts some of the starches inside the malt into more like fermentable, like kind of what we know as like maltose sugars, which are usable in a brewing process, like basically just getting it ready for the brewing process. And so there is a drying process where it gets moist to germinate the grain, and then they want to dry that out. And so typically it's done with, big fans, or in a modern sense, big fans commercially, just blowing hot air through, and then the grain is agitated to let the air kind of pass through. So instead of these big like fans and all this kind of stuff, it's basically, like I said, they put it on a concrete floor. And instead of mechanically turning it, they just rake it. So they have a guy with a rake, and they just go over it every so often. And I don't know why it tastes so different, but it definitely does. And to me, it just adds like a level of like breadiness and like richness. It's just like that freshly baked bread, that bread dough kind of character just kind of screams out of it. So it's certainly, especially all the things we've tried, it's one of the more expressive malts, and expressive in the way that I like expressive. And there's definitely a bunch that are more neutral. so don't necessarily express as much flavor or breadiness. They're more, some of the Canadian stuff we've tried is fine, but it's just not necessarily expressing that like big, doughy, bready kind of character.
Interesting.
It
So
definitely
yeah, it's a little more
like, it
labor, a
definitely
little more
does.
money, but
Yeah,
it shows
it
through.
definitely
Yeah,
does
sorry.
have that big that big bready flavor to it, and I'm getting like quite a bit of sweetness coming off of it too, like a honey sweetness, like sort of thing.
Yes,
Hmm.
that's what it is.
Hmm.
I guess
Absolutely.
is that a characteristic of that particular malt, or is that just sort of a result of the way you do it?
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, it's always going to be, you know, it's always going to be the big four, water, malt, hops, yeast, in some degree, of course, like everything's adding a little piece.
Mm,
Um, but certainly like the honey kind of sweetness, that's gonna be a malt, that's gonna be a malt
Yeah,
characteristic.
gotcha.
But yeah,
that's a
I
cool
don't know,
story about the
floor
malting
malted maybe.
process, though. I never would have figured that floor malted was that it really meant that literally.
Yeah, like I said, it's literally a guy with a rake just turning it over because it
Yeah.
gets kind of more damp on the bottom, right? So whatever's not
Hmm.
exposed to the air, so they're just turning it by hand to kind of just mix it up.
That's
And
wild.
like I said, I don't know what the science is behind that, but it
I
tastes
guess
good.
it's probably like centuries old techniques and stuff that they figured out, a hot minute ago, and it's just stuck with the tradition. They figure something out, and it's great though. It is cool to see you guys do lager. So how has this been received by the audience who are primed for the haze and the sours and all of that? How did it go?
You know what? It's
Mm.
been it immediately, like, I was pretty reluctant to do it, but my sales rep slash partner, Dane, he started a couple years ago, and he's a little more of a lager guy, um, which I wish I would have known before I hired him. Just kidding. No, he's great.
Oh, Dane.
No, he likes his
Shouts to Dane.
lagers, but yeah, shout out to Dane.
Good dude.
But yeah, he was like, we should have something like this, and I was like, I don't know, man, like, I don't know if it's a good idea. And then we ordered these like half-liter steins to serve them in the tap room. They're like, if we're gonna go German, let's just go to the end game here. So we got these half-liter steins to serve the pilsner in.
That's sick.
And when we started making it, it was pretty obvious who was drinking that beer and who was drinking everything else.
Mm.
And it was pretty apparent that like a lot of people wanted pilsner for the tap room, at
Huh.
least. Like, people wanted something 5%, filtered, or with a more or less hazy appearance. And so it's definitely been like a new staple ever since we launched it in the tap room. I don't think, I wouldn't say we're like known for lagers at this point. We have won some awards for like the Ridges for this one. I think we won something in the Ontario Brewing Awards, or I forget, but it's
Sick.
gotten some praise or whatever. But I wouldn't say Rouge River is known as like the lager house. But like I said, with anything, I'm going to make it. It's going to be the best thing I can figure out how to make. And so this is where we're at. But it's been received well. But it is like a big draft beer. Like, if you come
Right.
to our tap room, like, you'll see a lot of people with steins or 12 ounces, like, just trying this. And part of the bigger discussion is like people that want to go to craft breweries, but maybe they're not a haze lord, or haze prince or whatever. They're just like want to come have a beer. And so
Right.
I think that's like definitely something we had to kind of consider, is like the guy that just wants a beer.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about Rawaka and Nectaron and whatnot, and what is he going to drink? And it's,
Right.
it's not necessarily, there's been times where we had like 6 IPAs and like 4 sours on tap, and people come in and they're just like, I don't know what to do with this, so.
Yeah.
It definitely rounds it out more. And like we were saying earlier, like that you guys are always in the conversation, rightly so, with regard to like the hype, for lack of a better word, which is typically attached to any brewery who does haze very well. And I don't know, I think fortunately, because that's how I discovered lagers in a new way, was through haze hype breweries. who just added a lager to their lineup, and it rounds out the portfolio because it's almost like you could drink if you're having a night there, a session or whatever. You can either break it up with a lager. I like to start with one and then move on, just like get the palate warmed up a little bit before punching it in the face with some hops and stuff. So like I think it just makes complete sense. When I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, like it makes sense. Like it's definitely the something that you guys, yeah, that perfect for the portfolio, and like sounds like the tap room. But for the cans, are they like, I know you're distroing like Durand in Hamilton where I'm at now. I get your stuff all the time, which is awesome. I've definitely seen this beer there. Are they like other indie bottle shops buying up the lager, or is it moving pretty well out of the tap room in the can side of things? Like what's the vibe on that?
I would say it's like it's mainly draft. Like for us, it's just like getting kegs out there. And we're not trying to push kegs. Like we're with our kind of brew house setup and our capacity, we're not trying to like, you're not going to find it on tap everywhere in Toronto just because that's not really our intention. It's not really kind of what we're after. So it really is like mainly like our tap room. And then there's like a few bars we work with that we keep it on tap there all the time.
Gotcha.
But it's not really, yeah, it's like the cans are always available, but I definitely find a lot of our like bottle shop customers, it's got to be a new brand.
They
It's got to
want
be a new lager of some kind. Yeah.
Oh, even for lagers, like
yeah.
that like untapped sort of vibe stays even through the crispies.
Yeah. Yeah. At least for us, like at least from my experience, it's just like,
Interesting.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, bro, I wouldn't have picked that because, like, I'm just thinking of like, obviously understand the ticker culture, and it has its pros and cons, obviously, for the for the drinkers and for the breweries. But I just wouldn't have picked that would have applied to lagers. I mean, like, because I'm just trying to think of the lagers that I'm drinking. Like, I feel like I don't really care as much. Like it'd be cool if there was like 4 different ones that rotated around, or 6 different ones that rotated year round, or something like that. That would scratch that itch. But I don't really care because I'm not super. If I want a lager, I want a lager, and I don't really care so much about like is it new. Like I'm more interested in the hops for that. So that's fascinating that it still applies to that side of things, huh? So you've only done.
I think that's kind of why. I think that's kind of why, like the craft lager, in my opinion, a little bit is like it's neither here nor there. So it's not as necessarily consistent and cheap as a macro, and it's not necessarily as exciting and innovative as some of the other styles, IPAs, stouts, sours, whatever like that. So it's kind of like if you're gonna go to an independent bottle shop, like, are you going to be seeking out new lagers? Like probably not. If you are a loggerhead, you're probably not going to craft beer, bottle shops necessarily, unless like you said, you're going to do a tasting and you're just in the mood to kind of have something to start or something. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's still in a bit of a
audiences.
weird place.
Yeah, interesting. Even Durand, just like of a point of just observation, like I go there because it's pretty close to me, so I'm there pretty regularly. I love their coffee as well, and their fridge is cleaned out of lagers. And I was talking to the staff, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the lagers are flying out right now, and all the hops are just full." So I thought that was an interesting observation. And Chris, the owner, was telling me that he's been meaning to order from a bit, so he has let it sit a little while, but like. They're moving pretty quick, and maybe it's the time of year or something like that. That it's getting warm. Technically, it's officially summer as of yesterday, so like it's a maybe just the time of year that people aren't as, or maybe not aren't for other things, but just more inclined to be like, you know what, let me just get 6 different lagers from here because they've got a pretty sick range. So I'm gonna keep. I know that's that's like very, very interesting to me. The fact that people are super interested in new ones all the time. I checked on Untapped there, and I saw that you did a Ridges Light as well.
Yes,
like a 3.
Yes, we did.
This is 5%, by the way. I don't think we said that. And it was like 3 or 3.5 or something like that. Is that correct? Like American Light Lager type of style or something? Or what?
Yeah, it
was
was like 4.0.
Okay.
Yeah, Ridges Light. That was great beer. Sold like absolute shit though, but
Really?
it was a good beer.
Okay.
Yeah. So we basically did ridges, like still like floor malted. We went like, no adjunct on that one. So we went all barley malt and just brewed it to a lower strength, and it was good, but like maybe one of the worst selling beers we've ever not ever done, but it's probably like top 5 worst selling, and I
What
don't know why.
I was about to say, what do you attribute that to? Do you think that maybe people just weren't ready? They weren't ready for that from the brand. Like Rouge River are so known for haze that like the last thing they might have like this. I can see why. But then they go light lager. That's a whole different audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was kind of how we packaged it. So we went a little can heavy as opposed to keg heavy, and it's just
Gotcha.
like I'm saying, kind of for ridges, it's a draft beer. Like primarily, it's
Yeah.
like I want something 5-ish because I'm driving, or I got stuff to do tomorrow morning, whatever the case is. So yeah, it should have been a primarily keg heavy beer, but I think I was short on kegs at the time, so I kind of was forced to go kind of can heavy, and then
You can't turn
paid
back.
the price.
Yeah, I
Paid
guess
the
you could
price
do.
dearly on that one.
Well, I guess it's a good lesson. It's not like the beer would have gone off even if it sold. I mean, I'm sure they got a pretty decent shelf life. I don't know what that would be, 6 months or something probably for it to still be tasting pretty damn good. So it's like could have been worse, I guess, all things considered.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like I still have a lot of questions about like craft lagers. Like I said, like I don't. They're definitely big in our tap room, but like I'm still curious about how customers really see them, like the ones that really like those types of beers, like how they feel about those kinds of beers and like what they want. I of course, like most great brewers, I just do whatever I want, and then
Of course.
people are forced to buy it.
That's the best way.
But yeah.
Do you seriously
Exactly.
though? Like, I feel like I don't know. I don't want to speak for Nate, but lagers, if I'm pretty serious. Like, probably my favorite style now, and they weren't always. I lost my shit over your stuff when I first tried it because it was so. Oh my god, this is what I go to the States for, but it's here in our own backyard type of thing. Like, the lagers have changed the way I look at beer a lot now. Like, I have this like I fucking love them. It makes me aggressive how much I like them. And it's like, I don't know
What
why.
do you like about them though?
I love that they're
Like
a
you
different.
can have more, and
It's
just
not
lighter
about the
alcohol.
more.
Is
I
that
have one. No, not for me. Some people, yeah, because I'd be happy to drink a nice hazy pale ale at 5%. That doesn't really. It's not about the ABV. I like them sitting 4.5 to 5. I like the different. Like, it's a completely different drinking experience to a
It is.
to a hazy IPA in the sense of the complexities, the flavors, completely different. Like, there's this sort of like malty sweetness that's not tropical at all. There's no like fruit, which is the type of sweetness that's in the IPAs. Even West Coast is still, even if it's more resinous or piney, it's still a fruity sweetness, where it's like completely just this, grassy bitterness. And it, like, when they're done well, like the breweries that do them well, and we're fortunate in Ontario that there's a number of them that do them really well. They're just like, it just feels like a treat. Like, there's nothing better to me. The greatest thing on earth is a Luca Tap. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. Like, I was at Verst 2 nights ago. I hadn't been to Verst in years, and I had time for one beer, and I chose the Pilsner Urquell. I could have had like that Third Moon. They had a bunch of other really cool shit, but I chose the Pilsner Urquell because I just wanted to have it on draft, because I couldn't tell you if I've ever had it on draft. It's just like, I don't know. There's something that just about the whole thing that's just it's more like fascinating, because kind of like you, I feel like I don't have a massive understanding of it. I'm learning along the way, because most of the breweries we talk to aren't sort of like hyper, fucking lager nerds and stuff. So I, picking up, like, you just taught us about the floor malting. Like, I figured it was actually done on the floor, but I didn't know there was just a guy in overalls raking it. Like, that is cool to me. And like, I don't know, it's just become like a different type of a passion. And like, it's my first, as soon as I go into any place, whether it's a beer bar or a brewery, very first thing I'm like, if I see blonde ale, I'm like, oh, fuck. I want to see a Pilsner, I want to see a lager. Doesn't matter what style. Preferably Czech is my favorite thing, but German, hell yeah, let's go. Whether it's Helles or German Pils or whatever. I feel like it's just like it's a way to sort of like get an idea of what the brewery can do. You know, if they can do killer haze, fuck yeah. But if they, what can you do on the lager side? I think it's just a different skill set. I find that most of the best breweries that I love for their other stuff also happen to mostly be able to do pretty exceptional lagers. So it's just, I don't know if Nate, you could shed any additional light on that. I'm just going to plug my laptop in.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's along the similar line for me. Like you're saying, it's just a completely different experience. Whether like whereas I love nerding out on hops and the different kind of flavors that those can produce. Um, like it's much more subtle in like in lagers and I even enjoy like the variation like in different lager styles, exactly like C was just saying, like, you know, if we're talking Czech pills, something like something extremely crisp and something that's got like maybe like a bit of peppery spice note to it. Um, or the like or something more in the German side where we're getting something more bready, a bit of subtle sweetness, or maybe something that's coming up with a bit like a bit heavier body in a Helles or something or something like that. Just it just satisfies it just satisfies a different thirst is what
Yes.
like is kind of how it goes. And I even love how the lager like kind of range of styles differs through the seasons. Um,
Mm.
like how you might end up having a Maibach like in the spring, like quite strong on that like on that spectrum, a little more like a little more boozy. Or personally, I especially love the fall styles, like when we start getting into
Oktoberfest.
Vienna lagers and fest beers and like and shit like that. Like that's money zone for me. But yeah, I think it just satisfies a different thirst is all.
Yeah. And it's like it takes you like on a ride. Like I always have, I would never start on any other style but a lager every single time. Doesn't matter which style, but I feel like I can't. It doesn't feel like a real drinking session if I'm not starting on a crispy. It's just, yeah, it's weird, man. It's like, you know, the last time we really spoke, it was not that for me at all. Like I don't even remember how I used to drink back then. Now it's something that, you know, I could, you know, we're both very passionate about. So that's why we're both excited that you guys are doing lagers now, that we're starting off with this, and you know,
I should have sent
the...
more loggers. I had a couple more kicking around, but
it's all good. You were extremely
you got to
generous
get back
with
into haze mode.
yeah. Oh, speaking of that, I feel like we've this was like a really good intro to kind of really get deeper into the lager side. How do you feel about getting into Jordan's money zone right now?
Let's get into the real stuff here. Not that that wasn't real. That was very real.
That was very real. But this is what gets Jordan out of bed every day.
It might be more. Yeah, this is what I dream about.
There we go. So I love it. Dedicated, passionate. Which we're pointed.
But I will say, actually, I wanted to mention, if you don't mind, like we actually do a lot of seasonal lagers, like Nathan was talking about.
Good.
Like we do we've done Viennas for the fall. We do like a dark lager for the winter. We do like a dry hop pilsner for the spring. Nice. We have a Mexican lager coming, so like a corn, you know, kind of corn lager coming for the summer. So we definitely do the seasonal lager thing, and I've gotten a kick out of, you know, trying to dial like a lager recipe in for the season, and just kind of doing new lagers as well. So Ridges is kind of, we always keep that around more or less, and then yeah, we do like seasonal lagers. So we are like, you know, artisanal ales and in brackets lagers, you know.
I love it. Hey man, you're exploring. It's a whole new journey for you. I'm actually excited for you to learn and get into it, and like just as a drinker, forget the brewing side, like just to sort of really discover it a bit more and fall in love with it, because that's what will change maybe even the direction of things that you do. I don't know like how, what it just probably just takes time. You'll just, you know, something will happen. It'll just probably click. Obviously you're on the way there. It was, yeah, I'm happy for you.
There's an art to everything, right? And like, you know, like I said, like I didn't necessarily appreciate the art of it as much, but you get into anything, you know, you can talk about making chicken soup, or you can talk about, you know, anything, you know, there's going to be nuances, and there's going to be, you know, there's going to be an art behind it and perfection. So
100%.
Now I got to deal with that
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
So
Well, you know what? It's a process. Don't put any pressure on yourself. But we can put pressure on the lager, on the haze, goddammit, because it can withstand it. Oh, should I? Is it too early to say unlike the submarine? Too early? Too soon?
Oof.
Ooh, too soon. Sorry. Thought it was there. That's fucked up. Okay, what are we doing?
Okay. You guys need beer?
Yes, what are we doing,
a
brother?
little Rouge. We should do Little Rouge. It's actually not haze. It was a bit of a tease, but we should try that one.
I like it. It's really keeping people
Fun
waiting. You're like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So this was definitely not
This is
around in 2019.
No.
Here we go. Come on, there she goes. So would you consider this an American IPA, a West Coast IPA? What bucket would you put this one in?
I'd call this like a classic American pale ale.
American Pale Ale.
This is
Okay.
like down the middle. We don't necessarily call it West Coast.
There is a difference.
It's not. Yeah, like we've been messing around with the West Coast idea a little bit with some stuff, but I would say this is like straight down the middle, like American style pale ale, a la like Sierra Nevada,
Gotcha.
things of that nature. Except we had to mix it up, so we threw a German hop in there just to kind of
Why not?
just to confuse people and make it a little bit different.
This is the German hop. It's called Tango, right? The hop.
Tango. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have heard of that hop.
I have,
before.
but I didn't know it was German.
Yeah, it's basically I asked my hop guy, I'm like, what do you got that's new? Hit me with the latest and greatest.
All right.
Yeah, just whatever you got. And he threw Tango at me, and I was like, all right, like let me try it out. So we basically just kind of a lighter dry hop on this one. Like it's not a crazy, what we might say a cold side edition. So it's fermented with different yeast than our house stuff, I would say. So we in general run 3 yeast strains. So one for ridges. So we actually make lagers like with lager yeast. So we keep that around, and then we kind of not really keep like a California ale type strains, like a classic, West Coasty California strain. And then we run another strain called Cosmic Punch. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Cosmic Punch, but we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But that's basically, and we've gone through many strains throughout the years, but we run Cosmic Punch as our house strain. Like that's our main strain.
Okay, and
which
this
I
is
think
not
is kind of a little bit unique for us. But yeah, so we kind of keep around this. This is a different yeast than like our hazies. So just to get that out of the way.
Gotcha.
This is a more classic, like most breweries use this kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And looking at this body, this looks totally American IPA, and it smells amazing.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, it does. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Oh yeah, wicked. By the way, the other thing, just for clarification as well, the other style aside from lagers that Nate and I have fallen in love with over the past few years is West Coast IPAs, and this is in that bucket. Like it's like the whole full circle. You start on the color wheel, go through the ambers and fucking nut browns and porters and stouts, and you go into the Belgians, and then all that type, all the sours and blah blah blah, and then the hype stuff come, and then you get obsessed with the hype stuff, and then you kind of just come back around. And that's where I think what happened. That's where the lagers came back in, and then now very passionate about all things West Coast and American IPAs as well. So this is extremely welcome once again, I think it's like just breaks up the haze and almost makes you appreciate the haze more. That would probably be the best way to put it. So I'm very happy to see that you did this style. I didn't realize this what it was prior to talking about it. So that's sick, man.
You thought it was going to be hazy, I bet.
Oh, of course it did.
You didn't
Yeah,
know. You didn't know it was coming.
No, I had no idea. Ill prepared I was, but now, goddamn, this is great. So this this German Tango hop is very bright, aromatic. Getting a little bit of citrus in there. Light bitterness
on the nose.
Yeah,
on the nose, I'm getting dank and berries, and I love I love some dank. We were talking about West Coast IPAs just now, and of course, there's a lot of commonalities in flavor profile
This is
like
great.
between West Coast IPAs and like in classic APAs, and with some of those things coming out of here, especially the bit of dank I'm getting on like on the nose, that's already starting on a good note for me.
Oh yeah,
Mm, mm.
it's
Yeah, so this
so.
was
Can you talk about like Tango and kind of what that delivers from like from a hop flavor perspective, or maybe from an aromatics perspective as well?
for sure. Yeah, so I will say like typically the way I think about things is like whirlpool, so kind of hot side. So it goes in the kettle when we're making the beer, and then what gets dry hopped is a whole other kind of situation. So there's not, and there, every brewer, ask 100 brewers, you'll get 100 different concepts or ideas, but pretty much like hot side stuff, whirlpool is not necessarily as important to me. It's a little bit. It tends to be more generic depending on which hop you use, but there's a
Okay.
lot of stuff that kind of ends up falling like adds a similar like flavor aroma contribution,
Oh,
in
it's
my
got
opinion.
rye. I suppose you had the
So
rye in here
typically
too.
for us, yeah, that's a
Mm.
secret actually. You're not supposed to talk about the rye.
Okay, it was
Um,
on Untapped.
don't talk about the rye. No, no one wants
This
to hear
was.
about the rye. But no, anyway, so there was Simcoe in the whirlpool, but we don't really count that as like the main thing. We typically like focus on like a heavier dry hop, so that ends up being a little more important. So yes, I'm just saying there is Simcoe, but really you're getting most of the tango in there. To me, like it presents like if I didn't say it was German, I don't think like you know I would have known like if I wasn't told. It
Yeah.
it presents like a little bit more like American profile to me. Like it's got a
Hmm.
Mm.
very to me it's very like very orange. Like it's got a lot of orange peel. I get a little like orange tic tac kind of note from it. I love it.
Oh.
Little piney, like a little piney, like that
Hmm.
little like pine sap, that kind of orange peel. Um, I
Mm.
like I said, it doesn't present as like unique necessarily or German, or you would like for me, like I'm saying, I'd love to hear what you guys think, but it doesn't present as a German hop at all. To me, it tastes classic American, like very
100%.
like citrus pine, like kind of down the middle for me. So I think in this particular style, it works perfectly. Like it's not necessarily Cascade or something you might expect, but it basically delivers a pretty similar profile. So I'm very happy with how this turned out because I do love Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. That's just such a classic beer.
Oh yeah.
Having gone to both Sierra Nevadas, um, the West Coast version and the North Carolina thing, like it's just such an important spot. And that pale ale is just a beer. When it's fresh and you could it's a beer I could drink forever. And so this is a
Yeah.
little bit of my homage to that beer because that's just such a classic beer. And we've never done a pale ale like this, which is crazy. Like we're
Hmm.
almost 7 years in. I've never done a California ale pale ale, but
Mm.
you know it makes me want to make more of these for sure.
Good. What's the
Yeah.
response been as
That's
well?
that's
Sorry,
good.
Nate.
That's great. And like like anytime that you're thinking to model off of Sierra Nevada Pale, like I mean, as anyone who's listening knows, that's such a classic beer, and there are so many good beers that we wouldn't have if not for Sierra Nevada Pale. And
Facts.
I think this is I think this is a good like a very, very good, in fact, Rouge River rendition of it. And if this is inspiring you to make more like this, I'm here for it.
Couldn't agree more.
I think too, like as like a beer nerd, like a longtime beer nerd brewer, um, like for Canadians, I don't think they appreciate the legacy of Sierra Nevada. Like I think you talk
Mm.
to the average taproom person for us, you ask them about Sierra Nevada, they're like they've never heard of it. But I think in like for big craft beer fans or drinkers, especially those who have traveled to the U.S. at all, um, seeking craft beer or whatever, like Sierra Nevada like has to be a part of that conversation. So I think the people need to know. I think Sierra Nevada might be available here, but it
It
doesn't. I
is.
don't think it sells. Yeah, but I don't think it's doing very well, per se.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's
Sierra
not.
Nevada,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't hold the same kind of importance as it does in the States. You know what I mean? But we try to bring that up, and it is such a classic beer that it's like you got to show some love and teach the people, ideally.
It's important, particularly the crowd that you have. I think the fact that you're doing lagers and then now this type of stuff, it opens up their mind as well to other things. And I think it's like, I just think it's important that the haze is obviously like money and it's never going anywhere and we're all into it heavily. But I think it's just cool to diversify a touch. And it's just like some people who haven't, like we always talk about this, but think about it. Like all of us have been into beer for a long time. So we've done the journey. But people who got into beer in the last few years might not know anything except slow pours, haze, smoothie sours, and pastry stouts. Like a brewery told me one time, people have said to, why doesn't it look like a smoothie? I'm like, oh, because it's not a smoothie sour. There are other sours, and they were mind blown that that's not what a sour beer was, because that's all they knew. So I feel like this is like a necessary service to kind of like just, hey man, this is like modeled after the beer that inspired all of your favorite breweries. So it's I think it's great, man, and it shows that you're able. I think it's even cooler to see that, because you can, obviously you know what you're doing when it's hazy, but it's cool to see you flex the muscle and be able to do something different and pull out different flavor profiles and to show that you can do this just as well as you can the other stuff. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think exactly, like I was thinking exactly what you were saying while you were saying it, but like I ended up at Hazy's through my journey.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that was like the ultimate to me, like the ultimate in flavor and uniqueness and expressiveness and like
Yes.
craftsmanship. At that time, right? But like you said, you got to realize that, well, not everyone has done that journey that I've been through. You know what I mean? Tasting all these different styles, traveling, whatever. And I ended up on hazy, but like not a lot of people are necessarily there. And like you said, it can be a little bit of a cyclical journey where you get obsessed with the hazies, and then you kind of like, well, how do I you kind of go back to the beginning, not to the beginning, but you know what I mean, you kind of appreciate the whole spectrum. So I think that is like an interesting thing to say, and like you said, a perspective to keep, especially as someone who, there's still so many people as that haven't, aren't familiar with craft beer, or they still don't, they don't know what it is or what it's about or the history of it or the different styles. And it could be quite overwhelming, which is something I forget. And I need to remind myself, like, not everyone, has been brewing for like 13 years and, has been obsessed with craft beer for like so long. Right. So it's like, it's like I try to put myself in the shoes of like wine drinkers and beer drinkers. Like when I walk into a wine shop, like I love drinking wine, but like, I just don't know how to look at a shelf and know that's good value, that's bad value. I've tried that. I've heard things like I just don't have the, I don't have the reference for it. So as we say, like you gotta kind of look at it from the perspective of people that haven't been living, in the industry, and keep an open mind. So
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Go for it, Nate.
Oh no, no, I was, and this was also just making me think as you were saying to kind of put yourself in the mind, like in that kind of mindset. Um, this probably also like fills fills a bit of a hole for for someone who's coming in and looking and just seeing a board full of hazy IPAs and and wondering what to do with it. I know for a lot of people who aren't into haze just purely based on appearance, and to be able to have something that looks like this, if they're kind of fresh on the scene, is a little bit less intimidating, even just from an appearance perspective. And even that is can be enough to make people more comfortable with with their order, at least their first beer. That after they get past that one, they might be able to get a bit more adventurous. But sometimes having something a little comfortable for your first taste really means something.
Yeah, I also
Absolutely.
I feel like this is, as you were saying that, Nate, I was thinking that I like it that we're all just talking and thinking about other shit. The you know how everyone's like, say, I don't like IPAs? This is what they're talking about. Like, this is the style of beer that people are referring to, because the people who say that craft beer is shit and that it all tastes the same and that it's all bitter, that's what they think it is, because they had one sip of Sierra Nevada 15 years ago and then they think it's all, terrible. So I feel I kind of, this is probably, I guess, more of a question than like a statement here, but I wonder if, Jordan, when people try this, have you noticed like any sort of general feedback of people like, oh wow, this is crazy, look at the orange peel and this bitterness, this is really cool, as opposed in like, juxtaposition with your tropical fruity creamy stuff? Like, has there been any general thing, like, are people scared of this beer? Because while Nate is saying for some new people, being that it doesn't look, like hazy IPAs look, that in and of itself can be weird because people expect beer to be clear. That's what they've known it for. So that visually helps. But this is also the same thing that they've been, I was going to say brainwashed, but conditioned to be scared of. When there's nothing to be scared of, it's actually phenomenal, but perhaps it's phenomenal to us because of our context, because Sierra Nevada was important to you personally, and because we all got into West Coast IPAs back in the day, whether it's the local stuff like Mad Tom or, any of the Great Lakes beers or whatever it might have been in Ontario and in Quebec, and, Yakima from the Castor and stuff like that. Like, yeah, what's the general response from this beer? I know, like, in the time that you've been making it.
Yeah, I would say like this is kind of a beer for our regulars that
Okay.
like it's the beer that they wanted but they were too afraid to ask for, kind of.
Why do you think they were
Might be
afraid?
the well, like I don't take suggestions, so maybe that's like the first problem. But uh they're
Okay, that's
happy that
hilarious.
it's here. They're happy, like, you get some comments, they're just like, I really like this beer.
Hmm.
And there are people that will come, no matter what we have, but I would say it's just within the past 3 to 4 months we've started doing like West Coasty or like California ale fermented slash like fined, clear IPAs and pale ales. So it's wild. Like I said, like this is the first pale ale we've done ever
Ever.
that was fermented with a California ale, and like not with wheat or oats or a combination or whatever. This is like, actually it's rye. So you kind of mentioned that you looked up the notes on that one.
Sorry about that.
Which I don't think you would. I think a lot of maybe people get freaked out about rye, and I think that's why we kind of, I wouldn't
Avoided
say
it.
kept it secret, but people have like too many preconceived notions about rye. So I'd rather just not mention rye and be like, it's just a pale ale. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But it
I
is
think
like
that's true.
33% rye,
Yeah.
because I gotta entertain myself. That's very important to me. Is I need to get a kick out of throwing some kind of curveball in the
Yeah.
whole thing. So making like a rye pale ale and not calling it a rye pale ale.
It's good.
Makes me
Calling
laugh
it
a
a
little bit.
rye pale ale is like, that's pointless. And
People
that's an
people have too many preconceived notions. Like I said, like once you say
Yeah.
rye, people start thinking it's going to be X or it's going to be Y or it's going to be Z, and it's like you're as a brewer, like I know rye is not going to. People think, oh, it's going to taste like rye bread or whatever. It's like no, rye bread tastes like caraway seed, and caraway seed is not anything to do with rye. It's like it doesn't necessarily have a strong flavor. So once you say rye, like people are like, oh, it's going to be. They think too much. So my idea was like, let's just
Keep it
not
on the
even
low.
mention it really, and then like be like, by the way, there's rye, because like I said, I don't think you would detect like rye. To me,
No.
rye adds like body and mouthfeel and like viscosity, but it doesn't add. You wouldn't say, oh, this is spicy. I mean,
Not at
or
all.
anything different than a standard pale ale. So
Even
that
if
was
it
my
was
kind of
spicy.
fun.
Yeah, I feel that. Even if it was spicy though, like it's a like it probably would have been balanced out by the hops, like the fruity, dank, citrusy stuff. Like I don't think that the
Yeah,
rye's
but
strong enough.
it would be for sure, but it's one of those things like exactly like you were saying, Jordan, like the preconceived notion on that, and you can really prime a lot of your flavor interpretations before you've even before you've even taken your first and and I think that definitely, I think you had the right call on this, because if you had called it a rye pale ale, I don't think anyone would be thinking Sierra Nevada when when they were drinking it. Even even if you put that label on the exact same beer, just because of
Mm.
how conditioned people can be to to prime their interpretations of flavors.
Hmm.
100%. And same thing, like if I would have called it a wheat pale ale or an oat pale ale, everyone would have a certain preconceived notion. And
Hmm.
as we all know or don't, like whatever, like it really affects your perception, whatever you're expecting to taste, right? So like that's the
Hmm.
biggest thing, especially with beer ratings and all that kind of stuff. It's like there's so much expectation built into taste based on what you think you're about to taste, right? So
Yeah.
that was just a little bit of a, like I said, a bit of a fun experiment to just keep it like very non-descriptive and be like, and then if people learn after, so be it. But it's just kind of a fun, it's how I get
Yeah.
my kicks.
Hey, man. You got to do something for yourself in this too, right? The So can people expect more along these lines, whether it's the American style or whether maybe it's that, like slightly darker, maltier, ramped up dankness and bitterness and pininess West Coast? Is that something that you're probably going to be pumping out?
I would say yes. Like personally, or like from my experience, like some of the hazy pale ales, to me, it's a pretty tricky style. There's something about hazy pale ales, to be honest with you guys, that's just like it's hard, and I don't know if just it's my brew house, my water, my process, all that fun stuff, but we're constantly like working on trying to improve that kind of thing, but
Mm.
um something about hazy pale ale is like a little bit tricky. And not that we're not doing more hazy pale ales, we got one coming in 2 weeks, so look out for that one.
Yeah.
But something about a filtered pale ale like this like really hits nice for me. And it's something I could definitely see myself like reaching for and desiring, and something especially great on tap, to send to bars
Yeah.
or have on tap at our place. So I'm really, like I said, I think maybe like the little bit of the challenge is just like how to make it unique. Um, and this is a great beer, but it's just like, well, what is the signature on this? Because this is like, other than the tango hops, I mentioned like using something maybe that you haven't seen before in a pale ale. Kind of make it your own in some way. And I feel like IPAs have been doing that so long that that necessarily is kind of in my style. Like it's just kind of, it's gonna be different, I think, no matter what, just because I'm familiar with how to make that thing my own and what I'm looking from for it. Um, so yeah. Anyways, the short answer is yes. Well, I
Oh
think I
yeah.
think we're gonna do more of these. I like it. I think people will like it. I think people need to kind of still. There's a little bit of a, people need to learn that we can make these styles, and that
Yes.
it's something that we
Yeah.
do, and it's like it's fairly different from maybe what we're known for, but you know, it's so drinkable, it's delicious. So
Oh
I don't
man,
see
I'm
why you
nearly
haven't
finished this.
There's
This can.
some.
I'm just crushing this.
been.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Nate. Go.
There's definitely some benefit to some consumer education there, to be like, hey, you can get this this great Sierra Nevada tasting pale ale at Rouge River, and maybe you can expect some more from that. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I
Hmm.
think you're absolutely right about about hazy pale ales and New England pale ales. That sticks out with me, because this is a thought that I've had a lot before. And for me, why I the thing that is generally off for me with with New England pale ales is body. Because it can usually get the hop flavors there. That's that I usually
Hmm.
find is not missing. What's missing for me is body. When that starts to dip below the 6% mark, when we're then in the 5.5 and and below, um, the body gets lighter. The carbonate, the carbonation is making it come off a bit like a bit harsher, and some of the more bitter citric flavors like get more accentuated when it starts to drop below that like that ABV by and large for me, and like for some, and it's losing a bit more of the kind of like smooth mouth feel that like that you typically look for from say a New England IPA around like the 6.5% mark. That's where I usually find is missing in hazy pale ales. That's at least what it is for me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, there's something about like the alcohol and the body and everything, and it tends to be a little bit unbalanced. Like I said,
Hmm.
and I have tried some good pale ales, of course. Like
Yeah.
there's always examples out there that defy the expectations, but I've
Hmm.
definitely just found a lot of complications in trying to perfect that kind of thing. And
Mm.
like I said, we're not giving up on it, and I got another one coming out soon that's going to be amazing. But there is something that's like, despite my efforts, like knowing the things that you're talking about and the shortfalls, like trying to compensate, it's just it is tricky. There's something else going on, and for me and for us is like an IPA is like obviously that's a default, like it just seems like that's just dialed in, everything kind of seems to play together quite well. And then with the pale ales, it's just like you need like something you need to adjust a few other factors to really make everything work
Hmm.
together better. So
Yep.
yeah.
Interesting. It's always funny that the lighter beers are more work and just tougher to really sort of dial in. It's I guess you're working with less malt and sort of a canvas that's less forgiving, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've had this has been really good, by the way, because I feel like we've let the beers really dictate the conversation. It's been not what I intended, which I love this though because it's really getting deep into it. I'm looking at the time. Do you feel it's time to get in the wheelhouse? Get to some
Let's
Merc.
get in the wheelhouse.
What are
Let's
we
jump
doing?
inside.
Now that we've teased it,
Jump
now
inside.
that we've teased it and then
For
gone
an hour.
and then gone in another direction.
Right? I like it. We're keeping everybody,
We could do either the Holy Trinity or the 60%. Both are hazies. What do you guys want to do?
Nate, do you have a preference?
guys
I
tell
would
me.
vote. I would vote for Holy Trinity. because this is getting
All right.
into really really the flagship Rouge River hazy
It's
IPA.
true.
So why don't we do that?
Boom. So we did have this on the last pod together, and I believe we also had the pineapple version, which has got to be one of probably the best fruited IPAs. Can go either way. I feel like the pineapple one. I think I mentioned, I was telling Tiffany, which she you met her, Jordan, when we did the last one, and she's like, "Oh, the brewery with the pineapple IPA." That was the first thing she said to me, and I was like, "All right,
That beer was crazy.
that's the one that everyone's remembering." So, Holy Trinity, would you? We'll talk about this off air, but would you still consider this bad boy a flagship of sorts?
Yeah, absolutely. It is the one beer that we make all the time, other than Ridges,
Okay.
that we tasted earlier. So this is like our year round at the LCBO. So it's the one that we keep on all the time. We've been doing some seasonals at the LCBO. So this is the one that is constantly in the LCBO.
Gotcha.
And at the brewery. And we just did a rebrand on it, so it's got a
I was
new
gonna
label.
say, totally different. Looks sexy, and it's got a bit of a texture.
Yes, it's got a little bit of like a tactile situation going on there.
Love it.
But yeah, we just did a rebrand on it. So
Everything's looking
same love,
really good.
same
bro.
beer.
Yep.
But yeah, we gotta get the metallic. You give people shiny, flashy things.
Oh
to make
yeah.
them,
The metallic and the little
keep them
little
interested.
yeah, the little what would you even describe it as? The little fucking furry bits, fire.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Everything looks really crisp.
Thank you.
I feel like in this economy, which is always a fun thing to say, breweries who
Post
have
COVID
the
era.
yeah, breweries who have the audacity to invest in something as potentially overlooked as the label, whether it's the metallic side or just that little bit of a feel or whatever. I feel like that's such a plus. That is just incredibly. I don't know if it's underrated, but I just think it's cool as shit. And it's in a industry that's like tough to differentiate yourself. Like I feel like it is one way you can do that. And this looks fantastic, dude. And
Absolutely. Like
just
any way you can separate yourself. I mean,
oh
you gotta
yeah,
do it these days because
oh no choice. And this as well has Simcoe, Citra, and Mosaic, so a nice little like without having had this for a little bit. I'm imagining tropical, a little bit of dankness from the old Simcoe there. Oh, look at Nate coming with the branded glassware. All right, flexing on us.
Oh yeah.
Can we cheers and get that in us, boys?
Cheers.
Cheers.
100%. Cheers, boys.
Stunning. Hits. It's definitely got that little touch of citrusy dankness in the back end, but mango, pineapple, passion fruit type of big juicy fruit forward, great creamy body. What is it? 6.8?
6.8.
Yeah. Nate, and tasting notes before we let the man behind the beer tell us what we're tasting.
Yeah. So one thing I really appreciate is that Simcoe is playing a big role in this. I feel like Simcoe, it's certainly like a heavily used and well used hop, but I feel like it is an underappreciated hop in the flavors that it brings, and I love
Fair.
when I love when hazies bring some pine, and Simcoe is so good for that, and I'm loving how that's tasting in here.
Agreed. Yeah, there's like that touch of it's like a touch of pine, very subtle, and it works in concert with the obviously the juicy tropical fruit from the Citra Mosaic. Like Simcoe is such a great hop. This like Nate mentioned this earlier, and like as far as his curiosity behind this particular beer, has this changed much? Oh, actually, Nate, from when you had it last to now, you've had this before, obviously, I imagine.
I have had it before, and the last time I had it was actually fairly recently, no more than maybe a year and a half ago, and it was actually the first time I had it. Like even though I'd been drinking Rouge River for a while, I guess I had missed some Holy Trinity releases or whatnot. It's been too long since I had it most recently, so I couldn't really speak to how much it's changed since then, really.
Yeah, I just checked my Untapped, and it was basically since the last pod. It was like I think we filmed in the end of May and released it in June. So I must have brought. I think back then this is pre-cans. It was still doing bottles. But yeah, it's definitely got that. That it's not that straight juice bomb. It is a juice bomb, but it's got that little like character, like you said, from the Simcoe, which I think is just. It makes it just so interesting. So Jordan, has this beer changed? We're just saying, has this beer changed, or evolved a ton over the years? I know you said you've been in it almost like 7 years. So has this beer changed much, or has it kept it pretty?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's been a beer we started making pretty early on. I would say maybe within our first year. It wasn't our first beer or like our first 10 beers or whatever, but it was pretty early on there. And then the whole joke was kind of just like, I was like, my favorite hops, it's citrus, Simcoe, Mosaic. It's just like, it's everything you need, and I'm not a religious guy. So it's kind of a weird that we went down this religious kind of thing, but I, went to Catholic high school, all that fun stuff. So it's like, it's everything you need. It's like the Father, Son, Holy Ghost going on here. And I think it's a little bit funny that like still today, and this is a recipe from like 2017, or not this recipe, but the idea from 2017, and here we are in 2023, and it still has so much relevance, those hops and what those mean to people, and still how important they are to the industry. which speaks a little bit to the quality of those hops and how much they've come to define the industry,
It's true.
define the especially the IPA market and all that kind of stuff. So obviously,
Yep.
there's if we try this other IPA I have, it's a little bit different. But I think as kind of I've learned and the industry has evolved, like the recipe has evolved as well. So it's not a beer we started making full time until about 2 years ago,
Oh, okay.
when we launched into the LCBO. So before then, it was here and there. It was kind of our play thing. Maybe one of the beers we made, like we did variations on the most. So we'd like do double Trinity or triple Trinity or, you know,
Hmm.
mango Trinity or pineapple Trinity,
Hey, that's the
like
one.
you mentioned. So
Yeah.
we did coconut Trinity. We did, I think
Ooh.
I don't know if we ever did coconut
Ooh.
lime Trinity. But yeah, it was kind of our like plaything for throwing other stuff into. And then yeah, once we launched it into the LCBO, then it got a little more kind of codified, I guess you might say. So we kind of like stuck to it. Um, so it's always been those three hops: Citra,
Okay.
Mosaic, Simcoe. That's always been the case. There's definitely been lots of yeast variations throughout the year. So we've moved to, I mean, I could look it up, but we've gone through like classic London ale into like Vermont ale into so many different companies' versions of those strains, basically, like Omega and Imperial and Escarpment and a little bit of White Labs. We've been through a lot, I would say, a lot of versions. So yeah, like yeast strain experimentation has been a big part. Like water, there's been a lot of kind of experimentations with water profiles. That's kind of been a more interesting part. But that is kind of the fine tuning part of everything. It's not really necessarily, if you're changing yeast strains and stuff like that, and malt profiles, it's not really a good idea to mess around with water right away necessarily. Like that's
Mm.
something that's in the fine tuning part.
Right.
Um, so there's definitely been some experimentation with the water profile, in particular potassium. Potassium
Shouts
has
to
been like a
bananas.
game changer.
Okay.
Was that?
Shout outs to bananas.
Shout out, shout out to
I'm
shout
sure.
out to that element.
Yep.
Um,
uh, Periodic table. Let's go. We out
let's
here.
go, baby. What's that number? I don't know. It's important.
What's the
But
potassium on the thing? I never did chemistry. I guess we
I
could
don't
Google
know.
it. I know.
Ka though. I think it's Ka.
KN, that sounds about right. I know
That's
something weird. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
so.
Nate, you should know.
Could
You
anybody-
should know. I feel like you just know chemistry stuff.
Hey, I'm a math guy, not a science guy.
That's true. That's true. Okay, fair enough. Well,
yeah,
people
we'll
can
never
correct
know.
us.
It's fine.
We'll never know. There's
Yeah,
Google
it's
doesn't
fine.
exist.
Yeah, let's not worry about it.
Yeah. I won't even
Anyways,
Google it. I don't want
so
to.
a little, I
Yes.
think it's K. It doesn't really matter. But
It's irrelevant.
anyway,
You're
so
I think you're right.
potassium
I think
instead
you're
of
right.
yeah. So yeah, anyway, some experimentation with potassium. Typically, you see like calcium-based salts, calcium sulfate, calcium chloride. Those are quite common in terms of water manipulation.
Hmm.
So switching that for potassium, potassium chloride in particular. So messing around with that is something that's been of interest for the past couple of years, I would say.
Cool.
And to me, that adds a little bit more of a dryness to the finish. And it's something like I've been
Mm.
in search of for some of my favorite beers. Like kind of a juicy kind of like onset, like a kind of a mouth filling roundness with a dry kind of satisfying finish. And it's, to me, it's the eternal quest of like a sip that leaves you wanting more. And
Yeah.
that's of course like what we're chasing here.
Yeah.
So that's still, it's never done, the search, everything's always getting tweaked. But so I'd say the water, like the potassium based kind of salt approach, has been something that's changed over the past couple years. And then our yeast strain, so we're on that Cosmic Punch strain from um, omega Labs.
Okay.
which is a. Well, I'll talk about that a little bit. If you guys want to hear about it, you guys heard about that a little bit?
No, no, I
Cosmic
haven't heard that
Punch.
one. No, Cosmic
No, I
Punch.
haven't
No.
actually.
Thiols.
Escarpment is the one that
Hmm.
like that everyone knows of in Ontario. But like yeah, beyond that, like there's not, not much I think. So yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so there Scarman has a strain called Thiol Libre, which is kind of a similar concept. I haven't tried that strain, but it's the similar idea. So thiols are these like bound precursors that are based in like malt and hops. That they call them bound. So there was some like early experiments. There's a beer. Where's the brewery? Brewery in Maryland. They did a beer called the Locksmith, and anyways, it was just like unlocking these bound. If you guys heard of Scott Janish, you heard of Scott
Mm,
Janish, the new IPA guy.
Nope.
He wrote a book called The New IPA.
okay.
Um, and so he did a whole thing on like interviewing breweries anyways, there's so much hop research, it's kind of hard to talk about it all at the same time. But essentially, yeah, there's this new yeast strain called Cosmic Punch, and it like there's these compounds bound into malt and hops, that this yeast strain is supposed to unlock or release through fermentation.
Hmm.
So, kind of the concept is to build in some of these bound thiols that will get expressed through the fermentation. Um, so, there's stuff like mash hopping, which is a pretty obscure technique that probably nobody uses unless they're like a German old school brewery or chasing thiols based on this new research. But throwing hops into your mash. So when you grain in, crushing
Huh.
your barley, hot water, first step of the brewing process, throwing hops that are like thiol rich or rich in precursors. Um, if people want to know more, like I think you can get it in Canada now, either through Escarpment or you can get Cosmic Punch through homebrew shops. But essentially kind of loading up your beer or wort with these kind of compounds, and then they get expressed through the fermentation.
Hmm.
So I think it is like a genetically modified product. So it is like through some gene manipulation that they've like expressed these traits in the beer or through the yeast. Um, and we experimented with a little bit like 2 years ago, I would say, like right when it was coming onto the market. And then we switched off of it just because we wanted to keep multiple yeasts at the time, but we didn't have the production to maintain several yeasts. So we ended up letting it go. And then pretty much ended up switching to it wholeheartedly about 4 months ago, five
Huh.
months ago.
For
So
all haze
essentially,
or just for
to me,
this?
for everything,
For
for
everything.
everything
Okay.
that's not a pilsner or like a lager of
Hmm.
some kind, or one of these clear kind of situations, West Coast ish kind of situations. So pretty
Gotcha.
much every hazy
Hmm.
IPA you've had since like February from us has been with this strain,
Okay.
which is kind of fun.
Okay.
And now we're really starting to get to know it. And I'd gotten to know it a little bit when we messed around with it before, but I think right now, like that's a pretty unique aspect of what we do is just using this fairly new yeast strain that I think most breweries are probably scared or unsure of. But the fact we make so many one-off IPAs, there's no house profile that we're so concerned on keeping.
Mm.
And he
Hmm.
said, if there's one way Trinity's evolved, like right now, yeah, we're using a new yeast on that. But for me to go into a little bit more into that is you definitely get a huge tropical character after the fermentation.
Okay.
So more so than any other strain I've ever used before. Like you smell it after fermentation, and some of them will smell like guava or passion fruit.
Hmm.
Um, like they will have a distinctive, like sweet tropical smell that is like nothing I've ever smelled before. So I definitely like that a lot, and it's definitely starting to evolve as we've used it for more and more months. Like we take basically a lab pitch, so we get like a fresh pitch of it, and then we repitch it and repitch it and repitch it. So there's I think a lot of a lot of brewers tend to kind of push that and just really get it. The theory is you get it adapted to your brewery space and adapted to your thing, and it kind of starts to react in unique ways just based on your tanks, your process, your, all that kind of stuff. So we're definitely pretty settled in with this strain now, and there's still lots to learn about it. I think a bigger brewery would never do something as crazy as this, just switch all their beers to a totally different strain. But that's the advantage of being a small brewer owned brewery, is that we just, something sounds cool and we just do it. But yeah, anyways, so basically, yeah, it loads like a ton of these like thiol, like these thiols are just like tropical kind of compounds, like tropical smelling. They're quite volatile, but they are like low threshold, what we call. So you don't need a lot of them to be expressed, like to perceive them. So these thiol compounds that are generated have these like passion fruity guava kind of aromas, which is obviously kind of part and parcel of like the haze IPA kind of profile.
Uh-oh. Frozen there.
Oop, I think, yeah, we're frozen.
He'll jump back in a sec.
Yeah.
I found the beer that he was talking about called the Locksmith from this brewery called Sapwood Cellars in Maryland. There's not a lot of information on it, but interesting. Maybe his device died. He'll jump on to say, yeah, but that's it's fascinating, like to change. He's right, like changing the complete, I guess, like, sort of oh, here it is. There's a whole article of this Scott Janish dude he was talking about, utilizing bioengineered yeast and high-bound thiol precursor hops and phantasm powder to thiol drive beer. Jesus fucking Christ, that's so serious. It's it's
that's
I feel
like that's like some next level nerd stuff there. And I don't say that with any shade.
Oh no, that is like a full respect thing. Yeah, my next question really was that I want to ask Jordan is how he sees any of the regular. Obviously, any of his one-offs he wouldn't know any different, but any of the ones he does regularly, what the changes have been. Like you said, you haven't had this recent enough to remember. It's been 4 years for me since I've had it, so I don't recall either. Here he comes. We got you. So
sorry, my it just froze on me.
That's okay. It's technology. Everyone is used to it. We are good. I was just saying to Nate that I found the thing. It was by Sapwood Cellars, was the Locksmith beer that you were talking about, and I found an article by that.
Yes.
On Scott Janish's blog, and it was intense, like super intense. So I know what you're talking about. Okay? Is he the? Because I know that the that Phantasm was from Garage Project in New Zealand. Is that the dude, or is that someone else? But this is not Phantasm as such.
Sorry, say that again. It was kind of freezing up a little.
It broke up. This wasn't.
Say that again. Sorry.
That's okay. It was the article that I pulled up had something to do with. It was talking about thiols and Phantasm. Phantasm was created by Garage Project in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Is this?
Sorry, my internet is still being a little crappy.
Still playing up. That's okay.
Yeah. Sorry,
that's okay. Up. Do you want to?
I heard Phantasm Garage Project. I heard that.
Is it?
I just didn't hear the other pieces.
That's okay. Is the Cosmic Punch? Is this Scott Janish dude involved in all of that? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay now. He was just like one of the early. It's like one of the test breweries. Like, so basically, they let him mess around with it and like just try to get some results out of it.
Gotcha.
But he is kind of like the hop guy, the hop science guy. So he's done a lot. He did a book called The New IPA, which just talked to a lot of innovative, new hazy brewers. Like Other Half, and there's a bunch of other guys in there that he tries to get some secrets out of them. And of course,
Cheeky.
There's a lot of secrecy around. Yeah, there's a lot of secrets around these brewers, but they're in Maryland. Yeah, Sapwood.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was like one of the early brewers, as far as I'm aware, that got to try this strain out and just make some batches with it. So I don't know. So they say that Locksmith was like one of the early beers they did to kind of demonstrate what this yeast was capable of.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
and like for us, like as a hazy focused brewery, it makes a lot of sense to
Play with
just
it.
dive in.
Yeah, man. What have you noticed? So
100%.
since February, when you switched yeasts, what have you noticed as far as the difference between, the beer? Obviously, I was saying just when you were reconnecting that the one-off beers, obviously, you wouldn't see a difference if they're a new recipe and you've only used Cosmic Punch with it. But for beers like Holy Trinity and beers like other ones that you have done with your old yeast, what have you seen as far as like the difference from the old yeast to the new yeast in these beers or recipes?
Yeah, I would say there's a huge difference, like from what I've seen, like before the dry hop. So like post fermentation, smelling and tasting those beers is like this is crazy. Like it's super, like it's like guava, kind of passion fruity, tropical. It's got a really unique note that, in my opinion, like I haven't seen in any other yeast strains.
Hmm.
But once we do a dry hopping, like once we add hops into the fermenter for dry hopping, it tends to mute some of that flavor.
Okay.
And then especially once it's been packaged, it gets kind of like tamped down a little bit more. Um, so it's funny, we did one, this was a while ago. I think it was 2021 when we first used the strain. And we did a side by side, like same recipe, same beer, one with the thiolized yeast, was the Cosmic Punch, and then one with the one we were using at the time. It was a London Ale 3 kind of situation. And yeah, we released them at the same time, and there was no consensus as to which one people preferred at all.
Huh.
Huh.
There was like people liked
Interesting.
one, some
Go
people liked the
figure.
other. Yeah, even one of my like brewer friends was like, I like this one, but like my close friend, he preferred the other one. I was like,
So
okay,
you couldn't call it.
not clear what to do with that information. Yeah, there's nothing, no strong conclusions to be made from that. But they were both great beers, and at the end of the day, that's good enough. But um, anyway, so yeah, it's just like, especially if we're gonna keep messing around with the same ingredients, or similar hop profiles, at least we can put a new spin on it that people haven't necessarily seen before,
Gotcha.
Mhm.
What
even if we're
The
still
only
mixing citrus and
the
cone
only the
mosaic.
only other time I'd heard I'd heard that term before, thiolized yeast, like, and it was in in only the last couple of months, was with Badlands and their Link Up IPA, was was an
Oh
all
yeah.
Citra one with thiolized yeast, and now I'm wondering if it was Cosmic Punch. It very well could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say. There's a few on the market now, so it's tough to
Okay.
say. But and a lot of breweries may be using these strains and just not saying it because they
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah, yeah.
alarm people, or you
Right.
know.
Yeah, and and yeast is also not one of those things that is that is widely talked about. It's one of those things, especially with hazy IPAs, is everyone wants to know the hops.
Yeah.
Like no one's usual. No, not no one. That's not accurate. Like most people are not talking about about the malts, and even fewer are talking about the yeast that's used for it.
Yeah. The Hang on, make sure. Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I think Jordan might be frozen. That's all. I think he's frozen
Yeah,
again.
he might be.
He's given like a Johnny Depp look. I feel like that's why it threw me
Yeah,
off for a second.
like a very intense stare right now.
Very intense.
Like kind of like he's pop. Like it's kind of like he's popping out from the background a little bit, even.
Yeah, it's like Pirates of the Caribbean. Like he just won a lawsuit against Amber Heard, and he's just gonna go and spend that money. I love it. I was what was I gonna say? I was curious about. Now I've completely lost my fucking train of thought. Either way,
Oh, jeez.
yeah, I know. It's like it's okay. Here we go. He'll drop back in. Yeah, man. I guess it was more. I think I was gonna. No, that's what it was. I wanted to just know why he decided to, run with this yeast. Like when he was saying that, like, you know, some brewer friends would say this way, and some of his team, blah blah blah. Everyone was like giving mixed responses. Like, what was the clincher that made Rouge River decide to go ahead and use this Cosmic Punch when it seemed like it was mixed reviews? I mean, I guess the best part is you can always go back. They're always making, you know, I'm sure he has a bunch of the house yeast. And
mixed reviews, I don't even know if that's accurate, because that kind of makes it sounds like some people loved it, some people didn't, which I don't think is really the case. It's more that they couldn't get consensus on which yeast was better.
That's what I meant, I guess, is that because you couldn't get consensus, then why was the decision made to move to this one? So that, and you know what, it's maybe we can confirm with him when he comes back on, but maybe with that, like with a lack of consensus, he just went with what he prefers. That's what I bet you that's the answer, because I think that's the beauty of having a brewer owned brewery, is that at the end of the day he can get all the feedback, but you know, just like with any business, it's sort of, you know, it's better that one person has the final, or at least like an odd number of people, like a board, whatever, have the ultimate decision. So that he's able, you know what? Yeah, fuck it, let's give it a crack. He liked it enough to switch everything, and I think that's fair. I think it's completely fair. You can't fault anyone for doing that. Here he is. Let's make sure this works before we ask the question. Oh damn! It's just a black screen right here. Damn. Uh-oh. There he is.
Oh, there he is.
You got it?
Yeah, I had to hotspot. Like our internet just went down.
Oh, damn.
I don't know what's going on.
You had a nice, when it froze, you look like... It's what?
I was hotspotting off my phone, and then the quality was like really, really bad, and then it like froze. So, yeah, showed it to my girlfriend. She's on TELUS. I think TELUS is doing better right now.
Shouts to TELUS. You were doing... It was very like...
Free promo.
Free promo, yeah. You sponsor us, TELUS. God damn it. You were doing some very Johnny Depp face. I liked it. We liked it. We really appreciate it. Yeah, it was good. You looked like you just won a lawsuit. It was great. It's perfect.
Okay, perfect.
What we wanted to know was, being that you were just explaining that, you know, you had the previous yeast and then this Cosmic Punch, and that you couldn't get a general consensus. What was the defining sort of factor that made you pull the trigger on moving all of the beers to the new yeast?
I think like the results were great, and they were like, it made an amazing. It's still based off a similar genetic like parent. I think it's based off like another British L5 or something from Omega. So it's still like similar to a Vermont or like the London Ale. It still has like English roots. So the genetic basis to me is still in that root of what we already used. So it's to me, it's like, first of all, like, can we make something that's a little more unique, or that most breweries aren't using? But the default baseline is still a great like English strain, which is something we use anyway. So right. It's like, there's no like, it's still gonna make great beers. Maybe they're not absolutely gonna revolutionize the world of brewing, but they'll definitely be within the same style as what we're doing before, if not better. You know, more tropical.
Gotcha, which is what you're after. Okay, I like that. With that said, how do you guys feel looking at the time? How do you guys feel about, am I preempting it here? I mean, I
think you're good. I think you're right on the money. It's time for the next one.
I feel like we've been really good this episode. Normally me and Nate are a little like, we fuck up because you start getting on talking, you just kind of like, oh shit, it's time. And then this episode we've been good because we want to get through a few more beers this one. Yeah. Jordan, what do you think, my man? You mentioned before 100%. That you wanted to make sure that we got something specific in. Was that the 60%?
60%. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Does this glorious bad boy, come on, does this one have the Cosmic Punch?
Yep.
Beautiful.
100%.
Or 60%. Get it?
Well done.
60% of the time, it works every time.
That's a quote right there. So this beer, woo, this smells very different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
See, this is what people don't
I'm gonna have to
understand.
go same glass here.
Oh, look at us. Nate, stop copying me. Ooh, that looks fantastic. It looks completely different too. I feel like this is a little murkier, and I haven't even got to the yeast yet. Now this is a one-off, 6.5%. What are we talking, Jordan, as far as the hops on this little gem?
Well, I'm happy you asked that question because
You're welcome.
I have a lot of things to say. Yeah.
Well, the floor is yours. We have unlimited time, my guy. I got nowhere else to be.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you.
So some kind of exciting things. This was an IPA that was just what's in the fridge? What is the most exciting thing I can do right now? And this is the answer to that question. So there's a new hop called Luminosa, which is pretty exciting. It's from the people that brought you Strata, if you guys are familiar with Strata.
I am, yes.
Yep.
I forget the farm that was from. Apologies to that farm that did this.
Shout out to that farm.
I don't think it's... Shout out to the farm. I forget the breeder. It's a breeder farm. But anyways, it's their latest and greatest. The people that brought you Strata, this is their new one. So Luminosa, it's not a Harry Potter spell, although I think it also is a Harry Potter spell.
Is it called Roy Farms?
It's also a new.
Does that sound right? Roy Farms?
Maybe. Probably.
That's what came up on Google straight away.
That's some farm, yeah.
Some farm, whatever. Shout
something like that.
Just want to make sure I get it proper.
Shout us to the farm. Yeah. Shout us the farm. So this is kind of their latest and greatest. I love this hop. Like smelling it out of the bag is always important. Like you just smell before you dry hop, you smell what's going on, and it's a big indicator of what you're going to get in the beer. This one I was very excited about. This is one of the things I'm most excited about, I would say. So you guys may not have heard of Luminosa. It's pretty new on the scene. I think there's only a handful of breweries that have messed with it, but like super peachy, like any peachy like stone fruit is always like a positive for me. I'm always kind of trying to find something that gets that character. Like Citra always brings you a bit of that, but any variation on that is always welcome. And then Rawaka is always a special hop. Something that we could not get at all a few years ago, but now have been able to get our hands on a little bit more, which is also pretty nice. Were you saying something, Nathan, there? Sorry to cut you off.
No, I don't. No, I didn't have anything. I was about to say you're all good, man.
Probably just moan.
And then
cheers. Let's just cheers. I'm gonna sip this. Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Oh yeah. Oh, that just tastes like New Zealand hops. Jesus.
Yeah, and then the third one is Nectaron. So Nectaron's like a newer New Zealand situation. That's one of the newer. It's been around for maybe a couple years now. Still pretty new to most people, drinkers and brewers alike, I would say.
Nectaron is awesome.
But yeah, it was kind of like maybe some of our, to me, like some of our newest and most exciting hops that we have access to right now are these three.
Yes.
So I figured I'd just mash them all together, see what happens.
Oh man, this is fantastic. I've definitely had Nectaron a number of times, and Rawaka obviously, but I think the Luminosa I don't know if I have, but this is a fascinating combination, man. I feel like this is very different to Holy Trinity.
It is for sure.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
This one is very bold and punchy. Like there's a lot of really bold tropical flavor going on here,
and it's
I don't even know which one I can't even know which one to focus on.
Yeah, I feel like it's where Holy Trinity had that dank, pithy citrus, not quite to the level, obviously, the Little Rouge with the American style, but it had that little dankness in the background. This has none of that. This is just bright, aromatic fruit juice. And there's that je ne sais quoi of the New Zealand hops. Like whatever that thing that New Zealand hops do, you could try this blind and you're like, I don't know what hops they are, but god damn it, they're from New Zealand. And these are this is spectacular, dude.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing I would probably bring up is that like all of our IPAs are based on a pretty similar base
Okay.
recipe
Yeah.
profile. So like water and malt and yeast. So really like trying Trinity to this, it's really just a different dry hop profile. So
Right.
we're just changing that up, and it's crazy, how much difference you see in just
Oh,
that,
so much.
just a different dry hop combination. But like I said, the water, the malt, everything's pretty like standard-ish, more or less. Like they're pretty similar. There's like slight water tweaks on some of them,
Mm-hmm.
but by and large, it's the same. But like you taste that and you taste this, and they're pretty different.
Like,
And that's what I say to people that think all hazy IPAs taste the same. You
oh,
like taste this, taste that, and people. I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit before.
couldn't be more
You walk
different.
into
Yeah.
breweries that have you walk
Yeah,
into
yeah.
breweries that have 4, 5 beers, hazy IPAs on tap, and you're like, well, what's the difference? And it's hard to kind of
Everything.
express that sometimes, right? Like, I
Yeah.
imagine talking about the IPA we just had versus this. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to quantify that, but having so many IPAs, it's like it's hard to communicate that without just being like, just taste it.
Absolutely, man. It's like I would really hope that anyone criticizing hazy IPAs at this point in 2023 would be very aware that they are not the same. And I think this is the beauty of having a brewery like Rouge River on the pod, where we're getting to try different hazy IPAs from the same brewery, and it's night and day, man. Even just like the interesting thing to me is that if you're saying the base is basically the same, I mean, obviously Holy Trinity is 6.8, this is 6.5, but even just the opaqueness, the murk
Hmm.
on the 60% is very different. The hop profile is
Hmm.
completely, we're talking citrus, very citrus forward on the Holy Trinity, just because of that sort of like just a little touch of that pithy grapefruit, whatever. But this is just straight like a bowl of, like you said, guava and mango and all of that.
Hmm.
It's this is glorious, and the body is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, like this is just like it leaves you wanting another sip, which is like the ultimate goal of us, out there. Is just like you put it down and you're just like,
Yeah.
I want another sip of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
And
like you
New
said, like
Zealand
there's a lot of
hops
stuff with
are. Oh, sorry, sorry, Jordan. Didn't
Oh,
mean
go
to
ahead.
interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, no, I was just saying like with water and all that stuff and the whole, game of it all is just like the best IPAs I've had in my life is just like you don't really want to put it down. And the only reason that you do is that
Yeah.
it's 6.8 and you know that you need to. And like I'm into cocktails and tiki cocktails and all that, and it's just like it's the same thing. It's like it's so delicious, but you're just like, I just need to place this down so I do not keep drinking it because if I do, it's going to be bad. And this is the ultimate goal we're after. It's like, and I'm sure you guys know the best beers you've ever had. You just don't want to put it down. You're just like, especially when
Yeah.
it finishes clean, it finishes a certain way. And I think with this beer, we're getting pretty close. And it's never perfect, or else what's the point? But I think we're getting closer to like what we consider, what I want in a beer.
This is
Yeah.
like spectacular. Like honestly, this is. I
It,
feel like I know exactly what you're talking about when you say what you want in a beer. This is crazy, man. This is just straight peach. This is everything that like. And I feel like now you saying that. Sorry, Nate. To I know you're jumping in. You saying that, Jordan. Like when I'm drinking this, I'm like, this is my like. If I want a hazy IPA, 6.5. Nate and I always talk about this. That's my money zone between 6 and 7. I love that. Love 8+ as well, but this is like my preference. And with this body and with this flavor profile, with the peach, with the stone fruit, this is like textbook. Like if I can have this every time, I'd be happy. This is what I want every year. This is like
yeah.
the baseline almost for what a high quality New England IPA should be. in my opinion. So I'm absolutely with you on that. This is fucking spectacular, my dude.
Yeah, I
That deserves a cheers
couldn't
right
agree
there.
with that more.
Mm.
It's yeah, cheers. Couldn't
Fucking
agree with that
cheers.
more. Like
Woo.
this is just spectacular.
Yeah, this is
I can see why
glorious.
you were so amped to have us taste this one.
Yeah, we
Um,
did the right thing.
I, yeah, it's and to talk about like a beer that like that you kind of can't really put down. I feel like New Zealand hops, when used really well, are so good for that because they're the
Money.
kind of hops that that always end up creating such a dry finish. It's
Yeah.
like I find it so common with like with New Zealand hops, and this has that in spades. It's
Yeah.
like it's got like there's almost no residual sweetness left at the end, and like that's one of those things that just makes you really wanting to go back for another sip again.
And the hop burps, it's coming through my nasal passages. That's my favorite thing, and it's just like a peach is traveling up my back on my throat into my nose. It's gorgeous, man. Like it's like there's something special. I think it's like this is a mix that I don't want to credit. I mean, I definitely have to give the hops a lot of credit for this, but it's the body and the water chemistry that you were talking about earlier, and that yeast that's delivering it, and the hops that bringing that bitch on home. Like that's what we're talking about here, and it's like I think it's just like special. Like this is like basically that sort of perfect New England IPA without boosting it too much. This is exactly the type of shit that I'm. I love this, bro. This is exactly what I'm saying. Like, not to even downplay the other beers. This is just and it sounds like this is for you too, because this was the one that you mentioned before we got on air and multiple times since we've been on air. And like Nate just said, I understand now. I get what you're talking about. We needed to drink this together. I'm extra happy. Do we have 2 cans of this one? Tell me we had 2 cans of this one so I can have it again.
Yeah, we do actually.
We do?
Yeah.
Yes,
Did
that's
I?
fun.
Yeah. I'm
You're
a
the
good
goat.
guy. I'm a good guy like that.
Some might
Don't
say the
forget-
best
You
guy.
are. You
Don't
are.
forget about your boy out here.
Oh, never.
I knew. I knew what
Jordan
I
came
knew what
through.
I was shipping. They're all good. They're all my lovely children. But you know what? This is like a little.
So, do you know what's funny?
This kid's hitting this kid's hitting the homers. He's got talent.
I had
He's going to college. He's getting a scholarship.
every time. The funniest shit in the world on New Year's Eve, I'm not going to say who it is. My friends and his wife were at New Year's Eve, we're all together, and they got 2 kids, and we asked them both as we were, drunk, whatever. We're like, yo, well, who are your favorite kid? They both said different kids were their favorite kids. I was like, I knew parents had their favorite kids. I couldn't believe it. It was so funny, and I can see why. I think it's okay to have a favorite child. The way they were both so brazen about it. Obviously, the children were young and in bed, but I was like, I like that. I respect that you said that, and they didn't even blink. They just went straight to it. I was like, you can have a favorite kid. They're all your kids. You have a preference.
We can talk. We can talk about this like after we go offline. But I bet I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, man, you're not wrong, Jordan, for having this as your favorite child. I think they're all been very very unique, and they're really, it's like a different elements and different sort of like tools in the arsenal of what the brewery is, and you personally as the brewer, but what Rouge River is about. And this is that kind of like, yeah, let me just show you what the fuck I can do. This is fantastic. And
to me, it's like eminently like flavorful, but not overbearing in terms of like bitterness or, like overly sweet or overly hoppy, overly dank. It's just like,
no,
it kind of hits you, and it hits you in a nice way where it finishes clean. It's got like the body's not too heavy. It's just everything kind of works with it, and you're just kind of left like, that was a good sip. You know what I mean? And it's hard to do that. There's so many things to deal with in these beers, and I haven't figured out all the secrets or the answers, but like I said, brewing professionally for like 10 years now. We're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Hey, man, I love that. Feel like, yeah, man, it's like, I feel like there's different parts of it, because on the brewer side, you've been working on obviously the water, the yeast, the sort of the way you put it all together, and then on the the hop farmers have been there, putting together all these different type of things, and the New Zealand hops like Nectaron, Peacherine. To me, this tastes like a Peacherine beer. It's that heavy in peach. I think Peacherine has been one of my favorite new hops, and the fact it's not even in here and it tastes like that is is amazing. It's
Watch
just
out for
like
Luminosa, man.
so
Luminosa's coming for Peacherine. Watch
Yeah?
out.
yeah,
They coming.
Luminos is one to watch.
We'll see. We'll see. Luminosa's on my list right now.
I think I
All
want to
y'all
have
out
some
there,
single.
better
Yeah,
contract that.
contract it. Don't even fuck
Yeah.
around. If you know what I'm messing around.
Let me do it first, though. Just give me a couple weeks, though. I haven't done it yet, but
By the time the
it's
breweries
one of
hear
my-
this, you've got a couple of weeks. We got a couple of weeks up our sleeve, bro. You're
we got,
safe. You're safe.
we got some time. We got some
Yeah,
time.
you lock in them contracts. So Luminosa, if that's the, would you say of those three hops, then Luminosa is the dominant? Is that what's delivering that like whatever
Is that
it
the
is?
star of the show.
Thank you.
I would say yes. I would say yes.
So
Yeah.
what are the characteristics perhaps of Luminosa? I've definitely heard of it. I may have had a single hop beer with it, but I don't know. I don't recall.
Probably Badlands. I think they did a pedestal with that one.
They did, but I haven't been. I might not have copped just because I've been a little overstocked with these American trips. Has kind of fucked my game up this year. What are the characteristics of Luminosa, even for people who haven't heard of it before, John?
To me, it's like stone fruit. Like it's apricot, it's peach.
That's the one.
Mainly apricot peach, and like I'm always looking for that flavor. Like to me, like Galaxy stuff like that can be super more tropical, passion fruity, mango. But to me, it's a big stone fruit character, and like you can never have too much apricot peach flavor in a hazy. You know, there's never anything. You
Preach.
can't go overboard with that.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
preach.
so to me, it's one of the peachiest things. Like Amarillo used to be that thing back in the day, and
What happened?
Amarillo is kind of, I don't know, something went wrong with the farmers or whatever.
Or
It's
do you
fallen out
think-
of favor a little bit.
Yeah,
It's coming back a little bit. I will say it's been coming back a little bit, but
Okay.
when I was home brewing, like back in the 1800s, you know. No, Amarillo was big like a while ago. I'm so old now, but no, like Amarillo used to be great, and then something, just things happen with it. Like different farms grow it, and it just kind of, it doesn't have the consistency that it used to. But it's coming back. It's coming back.
Yeah.
It's coming
Okay.
back. But Amarillo used to be the peachiest kind of thing, and then Citra kind of came into that pocket a little bit. But to me, Luminosa
Yeah.
is like I'm very excited about it, and I have very limited experience. I will admit, like in a handful of beers, but compared to some of the other stuff, it's hard to stay on the cutting edge of hops. It's like it's a dangerous game when you overcommit to things that don't pan out. But Luminosa, I think, is definitely one of the hops I'm pretty excited about coming up.
Okay.
It's one to watch for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I would watch it.
I wonder if instead of like what I almost feel like is that sometimes like the Amarillo and like the more maybe like I was about to say classic hops. That's really not fair, but like the more like established hops aren't depreciating in quality, but these new ones are just fucking like ramped up so crazy that it's like not putting them to shame, but it's really making people like, whoa, what is this? What's happening? Like, with these breeding programs and such. That would probably be my guess, as opposed to it being flat. It's just things are changing. And the way these all new hops, that Nectaron, Peacherine, Luminosa type of Rawaka, you could put it in there. I don't know if it's Wakatu and Waimea and all those New Zealand hops that are like, seem to be eclipsing, because it was the Australian hops for a while, Galaxy, Eclipse, Vic Secret, Ella, all that stuff. And then I feel like that had its run from 2018-ish for a few years, and then the New Zealand hops just kind of like, just, controlled the game. And it could even just be that they just whatever the hell they did to make these damn plants, they nailed it, and that's really what it is. But it's not even a detraction on the maybe legacy hops like Amarillo and such. That'd be a theory anyway. Maybe.
Yeah, I think certain hops have like held up like a pretty consistently high quality over the years for different reasons. And then there's like the hop companies are always trying to push like new varieties, trying to give you like the latest and greatest thing. And I've had a lot of experience with this, and they're not typically the latest and greatest thing. And certain hops like do bring you some, but I think maybe like the fundamental issue or problem is like the flavor palette we're looking for is not that wide. So we're not looking for grassy floral. We're not looking for, you know, these certain profiles. We're looking for like tropical, heavy, citrus, you know, kind of this spectrum. And you know, El Dorado was something that was very people got excited about. I got excited about. Became Equinaut, and that's kind of fallen out of favor pretty heavily. But yeah, that had a cedary, like a more of a cedar, like woody note. And we still use it like here and there just to have fun. Something like Sabro is another one that we like to use still, but it's like it's a particular flavor that falls outside of the typical spectrum of like
very divisive.
Yeah, exactly.
There's never been a more divisive hop
think,
than Sabro.
Yeah, I think like that's the problem with some of these hops is like because they fall out of the normal spectrum, they become more divisive because they don't, you know, conform to the tropical citrus profile.
Yeah.
So everything kind of gets squished within that profile, for better for worse.
Yeah, and to add to that as well, see, just like as you were saying on the whole, like on the whole bit of that, like some hops kind of falling out of favor. Remember what Troy was saying happened with Galaxy for for a little while, like for a couple of years, how it because it was banging for like for the longest time, but had a couple of years stretch where it really dipped. Like for a while, it had kind of fallen out of favor broadly, and I feel like the same, like as you know, as Jordan was saying, I feel like the same thing could have happened. Could have theoretically happened with with Amarillo as well, on on that front as well. It doesn't necessarily I feel like both can be true. The fact that you know you've got these new ones like Luminosa, Peacherine, Nectaron, Rawaka, all of these on the rise, but it's possible that you know if Amarillo had had a bad couple of years with those with the crops of wherever it's being farmed and whatnot, it might have been just off years the same way Galaxy had a couple of off years before it kind of seemed to spring back up again. It's weird how how it can vary so broadly year to year.
Yeah. I did a pod recently with this brewery called Resident Culture in Charlotte, North Carolina, and their flagship IPA used to have Galaxy in it, and I forgot about what you're referring to that Troy was telling us about Galaxy until he brought it up. This was like last week, and I was like, oh shit, you're right, yes, and they actually swapped Galaxy out of their flagship, which is, you know, like equivalent of Holy Trinity, and replaced it with Strata. Which I thought was an interesting mix because Galaxy was so inconsistent. They were like, we can't rely on this. Let's switch the hop completely. And we moved to Strata, and they're super happy with how that hop worked. So you're kind of at the mercy, whilst all of your other things, you know, like Jordan, you were talking about the water chemistry, all the shit we just said, you know, all those different things, the yeast and testing and blah, blah, blah. You're kind of at the mercy of the crops, which comes back to almost like the wine side of things, where it's like, there was years that were known, the summer of 2009 was super dry and that resulted in X and blah, blah, blah. Like it's the same thing with hops, but obviously a lot more, recent. And it just is what it is. Like if it's a shit thing, I guess that's probably the benefit of going to Yakima or fucking, if you want to make the whole trip down to New Zealand or Australia to go and actually do the hop rubbing. So you can choose those batches individually, which is a whole expense and situation in and of itself, but maybe that's the only way to know for sure what you're getting, because if you're going to the farms that are actually making that are producing the Galaxy, and you can be like, this is not me, but I like all these other ones or whatever. It sort of puts brewers, because not everyone can do that, it's not always practical to take that time off every September to go, whether it's North America or what, I've forgotten, Southern Hemisphere fall is March, April, May type of thing. I imagine that's probably when they have their harvest down there. If you want to go down south to go and do that, I mean, that's just like a whole thing, and it's not always practical for everyone to do the hop rubbing. So you can really have these batches that you're like, this is the batch I want, type of thing. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for breweries, and I guess you probably got to go with the things
Mm-hmm.
that you know are going to be more consistent. Like, is that the thinking behind that? Like, you're like, well, I know that these New Zealand hops that if I'm there or not are going to be fire, so I'm going to contract these. Like, what's the thinking behind that?
I think like that is super important. Like it does end up being a big factor, but I think also that tends to be depending on where you get your hops from and all that stuff. Like that's the last maybe 10%,
Okay.
or 5%. It's kind of water chemistry. Like if you're making a great base beer that's cleanly fermented, no off flavors, good balance of sweetness, dryness, tropical profile, that that ends up being like way more important than getting the perfect lot of hops. Um,
Interesting.
like, I've made great beers with hops that weren't necessarily the best, you know, but it's like I
Hmm.
think your base process has such a big effect on what turns out. And like I said, it'll get you from 90 to 99% or whatever, 90 to 100%. But hops aren't going to make a poorly crafted, base beer from a 50% to a 70% or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like everything else has to be
Yeah.
working perfectly, and then you add the right hops that are tasting good, fresh, good lot, whatever, and that'll get you the rest of the way. But it's like it to me, um, it's not necessary. It's important, but like I've noticed just so many variations in hops I've used. Um, and obviously, like I've learned a lot of lessons of hops that will bring your beer down. I've definitely had that before, where the beer's tasting great, you dry hop, and then it's like, oof, it's not.
It's not
like
hitting.
I kind
Yeah.
of killed it like a little bit. And I think like for a lot of hazy brewers and friends of mine, there's an insurance policy a little bit, especially if you're trying something new, where you throw in something is banging, and then you try something new in there a little bit. So even if it's not hitting the way you want it to, it's still going to be good. So that's why we
Mm,
tend to like kind of mitigate
blend.
the risk a little bit. We try to like, okay, we're going to try something new, but I'm not going to do 100% of that. I'm going to throw in, you know what I mean? It'll be a third or it'll be like a quarter. So if it
Yeah.
doesn't quite hit, it's not gonna be a bad beer. It'll still be fine. So you
Hmm.
have stuff
Yeah.
that works really well, and then that carries the beer. Um, so that's a little bit of a insider
No,
secret,
that's
a little
great.
bit.
It was like because
No, I feel like I feel like there's such a great point in there that like where you're talking about how your base process matters so much more than the crop of hops. Like that's such a really important point that I feel like is probably lost
very
um
much so.
a lot
People
of
always say that.
a lot of times in the scene. It's
Yeah,
it's one of those things that we plenty of breweries who are are using the latest and greatest hops, but if their average beer is just kind of meh or subpar, no hop is going to bring that, like you say, up to 80, 90, 95, 95%. It like
Yeah,
your base process has to be solid, to use the latest and greatest hop really well. That's such a great point.
yeah.
yeah.
Like I said, it'll elevate if you have something already nice and good. It'll take you to
Yeah.
the stratosphere. But if you have something that's, infected or oxidized or improperly fermented or the water is whack, like it's not going to save you. It's not going to save you. You need to have
No.
something that's already at a high level, and that'll take you to the upper echelon. So I think that's the whole kind of
Yeah.
idea where it's not the saving grace. Like throwing Nectaron into a beer is not going to make it taste good if your base tastes like crap. So it's just
So it's the opposite
Yeah.
of what
That's
everyone
it.
always says. They always like, oh, hazy IPAs, you just fucking disguise it with hops and it's fine. Like that's really not the case. Like that's something that I've heard many, many times that people kind of like a bit dismissive of. But
they're
I
probably not
guess
brewing good IPAs if they're talking like that.
I imagine the people who are
That's
saying
it.
it probably just don't understand. I can't even
Or
think
they
of
don't
where.
brew, or they don't brew.
Well,
Yeah,
that I don't think they're
Yeah.
I don't like
brewers that
hazy
are
IPAs.
saying that. I can't even think of. You know what I'm talking
Or
about, Nate? Like people have said this shit.
or they're just the folks who love to hate on this style.
There's a lot of those.
And it's and there's a lot of them. And you know what? The less said about them, the better. We don't need to focus on that shit.
Exactly.
It's but Rom from Fairweather, had a really good rant on this when we were chatting with him a couple of months ago. He's just it's not an easy to brew. It's
No.
it's not just a matter of throwing a bunch of hops in it to mask. There's a whole bunch of there's a lot of breweries out there making really bad IPAs. So it's throwing hops in a beer does not make it good. It's it's a case of it can make it look like a hazy IPA, but it's not going to taste like a good IPA. Your base beer, all of the basic elements of it still matter a lot. You're 100% bang on there, Jordan. Hops can hops can bring it up, but it's not going to replace the base elements of a really good beer.
No.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I forgot about that. I remember Ram saying that he was very passionate, and I was like, yeah, bro, fucking preach. Because I feel like I'd heard it too much from too many people who didn't understand. Because even in 2023, you'd think New England IPAs have been around since maybe 2015-ish. So that's a pretty long. That's when the podcast started. We started in 2015. That's a pretty long time as far as craft beer is concerned. And there's still a relative portion of the population of beer people, whether in the industry, who don't understand the value. They just think you just disguise anything with hops. But lagers, and obviously lagers, you got nothing to hide behind. But hops aren't going to hide a shit beer, and that's really what we're showcasing here. And I think that's really key for people to remember, that people who make great hazy IPAs make great base beers. And they complement that with fantastic hops and fantastic hop combinations that they have curated, as opposed to disguising flaws with those hops. So, I think that's just important to bring up. And, as, proponents and passionate evangelists of hazy IPAs, as the three of us, I feel like that's just really important to sort of really push that point forward here. It doesn't come up that often, but it comes up often enough that it's all right, there is the difference between a mid and a A1 fire haze, and that needs to be recognized.
I would say there's definitely a give and a take to a certain extent. Like I said, if you're already at a certain level of consistency and your brew team or whatever, which in our case is just me, a lot of breweries have bigger teams, some smaller. Actually, not, because I guess
you can't get smaller than one.
You can't have smaller than one. Maybe if you only had one. If you had one part-time brewer, that would be smaller.
There you go. Okay,
I'm full-time. I'm one full-time, so maybe that's a point of distinction. But no, like you said, I think there is a great beer can pull it up a bit. A great hop can pull it up a bit, but to consistently hit outstanding beers, everything has to be at a high level. And for us, because we're so focused on IPAs, or I've been focused on IPAs for the past 10 years of my life, that is the utmost importance to me. So yeah, everything can be it, but if you can consistently stay at that level, that's just a testament to your dedication to the whole process. And not that we talked a little bit about I'm an occasional lager brewer. I plead guilty to be an occasional lager brewer drinker, but there's still love. There's still love. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're getting more regular.
I feel I'm very much looking forward to the next pod, when we can check in after you've sort of really gone deeper into lagers, because I feel like with someone like yourself who is so passionate about the New England stuff, that to the levels that you've gone to craft a what you consider the perfect New England IPA as far as the water and the hops and the yeast and blah blah blah. Once you get like hyper, I feel like there's no Rouge River beer that you haven't got nerdy about. So I'm definitely not trying to take that away, but I'm saying once you get like balls deep nerdy about the shit, I feel like it'll be a whole other conversation, and I feel like I can see you getting excited about it. And I think it's just more like a time thing of just going, and you just got to like, surround yourself with the lager side of things to really like get like extra nerdy about it, because it sounds like, without obviously Nate and I aren't brewers, but there is a different approach to that to lagers. Obviously, better than us. Compared to New England, what makes an incredible lager than what makes an incredible New England IPA, like the level of like nerdiness you have to get involved with is just different. I'm sure it's still the same level of nerdiness, but just different direction that you just have to aim that shit in. I'm excited, and you're already doing all these other things. It's more just like, all right, how deep do you want to go in lagers? You're already like, you already know what's up with this one style. And others, like not to say you've done, like we talked about it off air earlier. You guys have had a barrel program. You guys are doing stouts, and obviously, I remember being blown away when we did the pod last time by a fruited sour that you had. That was just crazy, and this was pre-smoothie era too. This was 2019. This is just like a fruited sour, like a lightly fruited sour. I think it was I think it was peach. Peach is the best ever. So it's not like you're unfamiliar with many of these other styles. So it's more just like a matter of time for like, depending on how nerdy you want to get with it.
Yeah, you can put, like I said, we're talking about lager a little bit, and it's every style is its own world. So it's
true.
I'm not saying it's impossible to do every style really well, but I'm just one man. I'm just one man making these beers. But like I said, if I'm gonna make something, I'm gonna put all the research I possibly can. I'm gonna experiment. I'm gonna do whatever I can. I'm gonna put my heart into it. So it's gonna be made in a certain way, and it's gonna be good. And I wouldn't release it. I would dump it down the drain if it didn't come up to a certain standard for me. And we maintain that as a brewer owner guy in this industry. That's something special that we can kind of maintain. It's like, if it sucks, it's not getting released, because I taste it, and I'm a beer drinker, I'm a beer lover, and that's not some like marketing BS. It's like, it's got to taste good, and it's got to be something I'd be proud to like serve on the bar, or put on my online store that I ship.
Of course, and we fuck with that attitude because this is something that we've talked about multiple times before, is that the breweries that we love the most are the ones who are passionate about what they're brewing, who are brewing the beers that they want to drink. And it really seems like that's what you're about, like 100%. And I think I think that shows through. Like if you're not going to put something out that you're not that you're not passionate about, that you're not that you're not pleased with the quality of, that it's not that no one, like none of your consumers are going to taste that beer that you're not happy with. Like that's the kind of attitude that produces the best beers that we've ever had. I think Cee will agree with that assessment.
Could not agree more. I think it's important, like everything you've said, Jordan, the way that it's like, I love that you're like, I know you were kind of maybe like joking-ish, but you're also like, no one tells me what to do. But like, that's important, because if it's one person in charge of the brewing, as Nate just said, the best breweries do what the fuck they want to do because they want to do it. They don't really bow down to trends or to like, people want this and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're tapping into lagers, it's because, all right, you're convinced that lagers are worth your time, and then you do it. That's what I think make the best breweries. Out of doing this for 8 years and speaking to so many people, that's what we have figured out, that the best breweries just do what they feel is best. If there's no passion behind it, it's really hard to make it good, and that goes for any industry really. And particularly, this is like a science art thing. So if it's you don't care, then how are you gonna make it good? You can't just like half-ass this stuff. Like it has to be nerdy, and you have to drill down to every element that we've been discussing tonight. Like I feel like this is not the direction I thought this pod was gonna go, and I think this is way more interesting than anything else we could have done, because we're totally talking about the philosophy of approaching beer and how like important the water is, and those each elements that all come together to contribute to the end product. The best breweries do what you are doing, and I think that's why you're around today, and that's why you're in the conversations in the province of Ontario. You know, like I was in Quebec for 10 years, and obviously I was in Ontario all the time, but now I'm here full time and focused a little more on Ontario just because that's what I see when I leave the house. And you guys are in the conversation for a reason. You know, there's not that many breweries that are in that like the best in the provinces, you know, particularly in this hype world, which is what most people would be talking about. And it's the dedication to each of those elements to just make the most fire shit. And I don't know, man, it's pretty consistent. It's pretty obvious. And I think people know, you know, clearly, and we know, and the people who are listening and who are familiar with Rouge River, the reason you're mentioning these, you know, conversations is shit is A1. That's what we're here for. A1 fire. You know the vibes.
Right. Thank you. A1 Wagyu. A5.
Oh, A5. Is that the best Wagyu? Is A5?
God damn.
A5, baby.
Do you know why I say there was this?
I think it's up there.
It's up there. A5 Wagyu. Okay. There was this Tumblr like screenshot joke. It was like this dude who was like, "Oh, girls think they got it hard. Dude, we have to be like doing these like acrobatics while giving you these A1 strokes." It was like this sex joke, and I just always thought it was funny saying A1 strokes, and I kept using A1 now as like the best thing that you can get. Like if you want to give the best of whatever it is, it's like A1. But then if now Wagyu's got a different scale,
I don't think A1's the best.
So that guy he fucked up the game. He maybe should have said A5 strokes.
Yeah, he might be. He probably hasn't had a good steak before. Yeah, he's got to eat more steak. He's got to learn.
You know what?
Yeah.
He ruined me because I guess I haven't had enough steak because I didn't know. I just keep saying A1 all the time. And if it's not that good, I'd be like, oh, why don't you give you those B2? You know, like you bring it down a little
A1
bit.
is the steak sauce. Maybe that's what he's talking about. That steak sauce.
Or is it that H one? Is it H from that? Or is it
not
A?
a good steak sauce, though.
Yeah, it's probably not the good. It's that British.
No,
HP. That's the one. The British one.
But there's also A1.
Yeah.
I think might be a steak sauce.
Maybe I need to learn more about the steak world.
It is a
Is there
steak
an A1
sauce.
steak sauce? Are you looking at that, Nathan?
But you would never put A1 on on a good steak.
No, you would just eat that shit raw dog.
No, you wouldn't use A1.
Maybe a little bit of salt,
Yeah,
pepper.
100%.
Keep it clean.
Salt and pepper.
Speaking, I was trying to do a segue. I ain't got no segue. What do we want to do to maybe? What do we want to do next, boys? What are we feeling? What's the vibe? So we've done lager, American Pale Ale, 2 different types of hazy IPAs in the 6-ish realm. What are we feeling?
Jordan, what do you think?
I feel like
staff choice here.
this is on you, my friend. I feel like
That was pick. Clay. We could do Clay, or we could do Groovy. I think is the options.
okay. So Clay is a double IPA.
You could do
Groovy
sour. Yeah.
I'm kind of, as much as I would love a double IPA, I'm kind of thinking to round out the portfolio for everyone to see what we're working with here. Maybe the Groovy might be the way to.
I'm down for that. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And I was just bigging up your sours, man. Like I think about that. There was that. What was the name of the sour back then? 2019. Do you remember? Oh, he froze again. I could probably just find it. Yeah, it's okay. He'll come back. I'm not afraid. Jordan's come back before. He's not scared.
Yeah, he'll be back.
He'll be back. This is that last joint. Fuck me, that was so damn good.
Oh my god, that was good.
Right? Oh my goodness. We'll see the double IPAs. Ooh, they're looking fucking fire, bro. But yeah, I feel like this is the move. I I'm scanning through the
Wait, Brendan,
untapped.
thank you. So you know what this is doing when his screen freezes? You know how on like on iPhone pictures, if you like if you hold your thumb over like over a subject, like specifically over a person, it'll do that thing where it like lights up and signals out like the person's face. It looks like it's doing that on his face right now.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Like in those live photos or whatever too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know the vibes.
That's going to mean nothing to anyone who isn't watching the video, but like you probably know what I'm talking about though if you have an iPhone.
They know what they're talking about. I really hope that. Oh, so actually, I'll wait till Jordan comes back on to tell him about the the beer. But yeah, I remember having the sour during the podcast we did last time, and it reminded me at the time the epitome of sours was Jelly King. And it just reminded me of like,
Yeah.
whoa, like this is as good as Jelly King, and because there wasn't really much at the time that was as good as a fruited Jelly King. This is once again pre-smoothie sours, so I'm super curious to see how this one goes, and I think it'd be a good
Yeah,
little
like and
go.
yeah, I think that's the right choice. And Jelly King is definitely the preeminent dry hop sour in Ontario. Like even the base Jelly King and
Yes,
the fruited Jelly Kings like have just been absolutely spectacular. I feel like in particular the berry Jelly Kings
very good.
have been particularly money. Not even just like the flavor has obviously been spectacular, but even just like when you see like a bright purple thick like kind of thing there's one of those things that even just from a visual perspective is something spectacular, you know.
Exactly, and that's what I was excited about from that first sour. Jordan, do you remember the sour that we would have had in that first podcast in 2019? It was, I believe, some sort of peach or apricot sour, and I remember losing my mind over it. And once again, pre-smoothie, so it was like tons of fruit, but not like smoothie level fruit. Can you hear me?
Are you saying compare? Hold on, my internet is still not doing
We'll
so
kick back
good.
in a sec. This happened
Oh my
last
God,
time. It's
having
okay.
problems here.
Dude, don't sweat it. Tell me
Yeah,
when you can hear us.
sorry,
No, it's okay. It's
sorry.
okay. It's technical things, and everyone's understanding at this
Yeah.
point. We do, you know, tech nonsense happens all the time to all of us. We'll get there. But
Okay,
this,
hold on.
that's
That's so
okay,
annoying.
dude. You're good. You're good. You're good. This particular one, I'm very excited about. The fruit combo is fire. Can you hear me now? No.
Oh my
No,
God,
I don't think you can.
No. Okay.
it's not.
Oh, Eddie's gone. We'll wait a sec.
Shit.
Yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
find it when I'm looking through Untapped. I absolutely would have checked into it because that's how the fuck we get down. But either way, it was just like it was cool because back in 2019, the main things that Rouge River did were haze and fruited sours, and it was just money. I'm pretty sure it's got to be peach or apricot or some sort of like something like that, some sort of stone fruit. That was just phenomenal. All right, let's see if this works. Jordan, sir, have we got you?
Back on my girlfriend's phone.
Okay,
This
that's the one.
should be better.
Okay.
And as you call in,
There we
my
go.
It
my
was
camera just died. It's okay. I'm gonna switch mine out.
That's okay. That's okay. We still got you though.
Yeah, exactly. The audio's still here. Do you remember, Jordan? We had a sour during the podcast in 2019, and it was either peach or apricot or something along those lines. Do you recall, by any chance, what that was all about?
The beers we used to have. Yeah.
It was. I couldn't find it
Yeah,
on
we used to
Untapped.
do like we've gone through so many styles.
I just
Yeah, we
remember
used to
being
call them just like
exceptional.
whatever sour.
Okay,
Peach
It-
sour, apricot sour, strawberry sour. It was very
something like that.
creative, how we used to name the beers. Yes.
Okay, that's fair. I just remember it being genuinely fantastic. Like really, I was saying to Nate just while we were getting reconnected, it was at the time the fruited Jelly Kings were kind of like the baseline for like fruited sour beers, and I just remember being blown away by it because you did A1 haze and then the A5 sours, and this. So I'm excited to try this one. So the one that we're doing now is, like you said, called Groovy Fruit. Come on. And this one is a watermelon, strawberry watermelon margarita style sour, which I'm excited for. Do you have that one? You do.
Absolutely.
Ooh. Woof. All right. Yeah, let's see what she's looking like. Have you ever done the smoothie sour at all?
We've done a few. But they're perilous, if I could say. They're risky. They have a lot of inherent caution built into them.
Completely understood.
So we've definitely gravitated, to and from that style throughout the past 3, 4, 5 years. Probably more within the past 3 years. We've experimented heavily with the heavy fruit, and then incorporating the fruit into the canned product.
Gotcha.
As opposed to straining the fruit out or dumping it or fermenting it. So this beer, it's all fermented fruit. So we add the fruit during active fermentation towards the tail end of fermentation, just to get all that residual sugar fermented out. So it basically, you don't get as much sweetness or juiciness or fullness necessarily, but it does make the beer very stable over time. So if you do leave it out, it will not explode in your car or wherever you may leave it.
Well, you shouldn't be leaving
for us,
craft beer in your car, but still.
No, you shouldn't. But we've all had those situations where we forget, or
it happens to the best of us.
It happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us. And so you don't have to worry about something exploding in your trunk or under your car seat or wherever a beer might explode that rolls away or gets forgotten about. So yeah, this is a sour beer, strawberry. We use watermelon concentrate, which is the best way to get watermelon flavor. And it turns out there is almost no way to get watermelon flavor in a natural way, which is what we're suffering here. Like we're trying to use an actual watermelon concentrate. If you use watermelon puree, you could make a sour out of watermelon puree and still probably not taste watermelon. If you use that as the whole water source. That's my hot take on watermelon flavor. But you need to use some kind of concentrate or extract, like extract, to be quite honest. And we're not using extract here. We're just using like a concentrated watermelon product, and it doesn't really come through.
It's tricky when you're when you're trying to capture the essence of a fruit that is like almost entirely water.
Hence the name, exactly. Cheers, legends.
Like watermelon, yes. Cheers, guys. Cheers. Yeah, watermelon is like. I think the funny thing about watermelon is people know it more as a candy flavor than like an actual
good point
experienced flavor.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
more as a Jolly Rancher than as an actual flavor of fruit.
People want to taste the Jolly Rancher taste of watermelon, which is not what watermelon actually tastes like, which is the fundamental problem with watermelon flavor. And so, anyways, we use some watermelon concentrate, but it's basically just, it's never going to happen unless we use some ungodly amount of that. So you get a lot of strawberry. We use a little bit of tangerine puree, because every good margarita has a little bit of a orange component.
Fair.
A little bit of Cointreau triple sec, orange component. And then yeah, a little bit of lime juice, a little bit of lime juice in there as well, which is another good part of a margarita. And then yeah, mostly strawberry, a little bit of tangerine, a little bit of lime, and then the watermelon
Yeah.
concentrate. So
I dig it.
it's tasty.
Yeah, man. It's
Hmm.
very different. But it works. It's got all the things you need. Particularly this time of year. With the once again, technically summer. Super fruity, very, very crushable. I really nothing else to say. This is fantastic. It's a nice balanced little gem that sort of rounds it all out. Tart, tangy. That's the words I was looking for. Yeah, man.
A little bit of salt as well. Actually,
Yeah, the
I should
salt
mention
is
that we throw a little bit of a pink Himalayan just for style
gang.
up in there.
I love
It's
that.
nice.
Yeah,
It
not
it's nice and
salty
subtle.
per
It's
se,
not.
but it just a little, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
just
It's
like
not quite
background.
like a seawater kind of thing that you might guess from like that you might get from a goza, but like there's a little something there that like that kind of contrasts like the fruit a little bit and makes it a little extra refreshing even. It's a nice
Hmm.
touch.
Hmm.
It's the kind of
Yeah,
thing
there's
that if
like
you hadn't said there was salt in it, you probably wouldn't have necessarily noticed it, but you would feel that kind of little parching effect.
hmm hmm just makes it a little more satisfying, like on the finish and in the body. So it's
Yeah.
like funny part about salt is there's such a big spectrum in like what's perceivable or whatever. Like there's such a huge spectrum in there. So we're trying to get it where it makes it feel it feels full and it feels satisfying, but you wouldn't think it's salty. It's not like like it's like swallowing salt water. Like that would be the extreme
Yeah.
example. But that would be
Yeah.
obviously way too salty. But something that's just like, oh, it's just like it just kind of has a little background satisfying character.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I've definitely had gozas before that have that have legit tasted like they were brewed with seawater. And and they were good for what they were because I was expecting that it would like with it being advertised as a goza. This is one that if I had not known there was salt in it, I don't know that I would have picked it up. I'm tasting it because I know it was in it. We talked before about, all of the preconceived notion how you can be primed for flavor and all that, but it is not a standout flavor in this. The strawberry is definitely way more up front and and kind of the citrus
Hmm.
notes of
Hmm.
of the tangerine and lime juice come through way more than that. The salt is more of a less detectable addition to it, but really serves the overall beer quite well, I think.
Yeah, this is like I think another fun one that would be like I don't want to say experiment. We're not experimenting on our customers by any means. We love you all and we cherish you. But like not saying there's salt in it, right? Like not knowing that there's salt or it's been salted and seeing like what people perceive in that. Like if they didn't know there was like but if about a kilo of salt in the whole batch in like 10 barrels is about like 1,200 liters. So it's about 1,000 grams of salt in the whole situation. But if you didn't know there
Hmm.
was salt added, would you have like called it out separately necessarily? And that always, that gives me a kick. Once you say there's salt, people tend to be like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I get the salt. But if you didn't say,
Exactly.
if you didn't know or if you didn't look up the tasting notes or whatever, would you say like, oh yeah, there's salt added? And that to me that's like the fun play. And it's like like to me it's like we're chefs at the end of the day. It's like you don't need to ask why it tastes
Yeah.
good. Like you just need to enjoy it, and ideally, it just adds to the experience. And you know, you get these little notes. It's just supposed to taste good, and that's
Absolutely.
it.
And I think it does taste good.
I think it tastes great.
And the job is done.
That's what we want. It's a
And it's not overly salty, and you
no.
don't notice it, so it's enough.
I mean, it's called a margarita, so there's an expectation of salt. You've like set that there, and watermelon is a light flavor that everyone knows. And the strawberry is also a pretty chill flavor. So it's just like a great, not too intense, very like it's like a crusher that it's like sometimes sours can be a little filling, I guess, maybe depending on the volume of fruit. And this is like you could rock this by the pool, by the beach, in the park, whatever legal drinking situations that present themselves. You could crush this all summer long with no problems, which is fine.
Yeah.
And it's like cool contrast to the rest of the beers we've had tonight.
This is it's rolling out to LCBOs across the province currently.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just in a
Nice.
few stores right now, but I think we got about 60, 70 cases that are rolling out across the province.
Hell yeah.
And I got another batch coming that's not been brewed yet, but I gotta make it, and then that will be in more LCBOs in a couple weeks
Same.
once I've made it.
Once you made it. Same fruit blend. Strawberry watermelon margarita.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, this is like the summer seasonal for Rouge River at the LCBO. So
Hell
this
yeah.
will be the one you'll see at all the LCBOs. So we're gonna have this for the next couple months. You'll see this around town. During
Amazing.
coffee,
Yeah.
other locations,
Head on down.
LCBOs, other bars.
I'd
so
love
on
to
and so
see
forth.
that. When did you
Yes.
guys? I mean, obviously, last time we chatted, you guys weren't in the LCBO at all. What? When did that happen?
How did that happen with the LCBO?
Yeah.
You know what? Like, there was a desire to bring our delicious beers to more people and expand our reach. And just having one physical location, as we do in Markham, limited us a little bit. And I think the beer has a lot of potential to expand and reach different people, and the quality should be enjoyed by a greater amount of people. And so it's just a way to expand our reach a little bit, and just kind of try to get the word out. Because yeah, just having a tap room and a social media presence is like one thing, but obviously there's Ontario is a big place,
Sure
for
is.
better or for worse, and there's a lot of people here, and so like reaching the LCBO is like a big opportunity for us. So that was just kind of like, we don't want to be the biggest brewery in the world. Like I don't have those desires. Like quality and control of product is, as a brewer, is very important. And we're still able to do that at this scale. I still make all the beer myself, every batch. Hopefully not forever. I mean, it's great that I do that, but like ideally, one day you got to kind of like go a little bit. But for now,
It's hard, but
it's still me.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was just a desire to just like kind of expand and just try to, spread the message a bit and get to to reach more people.
What have you seen as far as the results of for however long you've been involved in the LCBO? Like, have you seen people come in the tap room and be like, "Oh, how did you hear about us?" Like, "Oh, I was in the LCBO and I saw Holy Trinity." I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, I like this beer. I'm gonna come check them out. Like, is there any sort of like maybe anecdotal sort of evidence on that?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think there's a little bit of like, and it's so hard to quantify all this stuff because like the people that go to the LCBO, they're not talking to us and they're not messaging us necessarily. There's
Right.
people that come in that say, "Oh, I tried it in the LCBO and I loved it and I wanted to check out more." And then there's just like it's really hard to track some of this stuff, but
It's a little gray. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, we try to talk to everyone that we can or that's willing to try to whatever, but um it's definitely expanded our reach quite a bit. And it's like the people that are dedicated to craft beer, like, are they willing to place an order on our online store, right? Say you try our beer in Hamilton or you try our beer in St. Catharines, and we're in LCBOs out there, but you got to really like it, right? And you got to be like, I love this. I'm willing to pay $15 for shipping, whatever the case is. And some people are willing to do that, and that's all good. But no, it's been good. It's been good, and I think it's definitely just like helping our growth this year. We're definitely seeing, you know, people coming in that wouldn't necessarily have come in before. So
Hmm.
no, it's overall very positive for sure.
That's dope. It seems like I guess one of the things I'd sort of noticed over the last few years is that there's breweries like yourself and a few others that typically weren't traditionally interested in the LCBO. Of maybe my guess is that COVID kind of pointed like that 2-3 years, whatever it is, like had sort of like shown that there is some benefit in being placed there, even if it's maybe like financially not a huge gain or even like a break even point. And then that resulted in more people, like a brand awareness type of campaign type of thing, just for people to know like, hey, this exists. There is an experience attached to this beer that you're welcome to participate in if you like it as much, whether it's an order online or whether it's a head on down to Markham or whatever. And I feel like it makes sense. It's like I've seen it almost surprised me at first when a few different breweries that would never have done that started proactively getting in the LCBO. I'm like, oh shit, all right, this is nice to see. Whether it's, and I feel like they're not aimed at people like the three of us, and that's great actually, because the beer nerds like the three of us are gonna seek out the breweries. We're gonna want that unique experience by going to the brewery, but hey, I got this brewery only release and I got this 4-pack that you can only get there and blah blah blah. But then there's a whole other genre of individuals who are maybe casual drinkers that just like the can art and just be like, oh, that sounds fun, this is local, I like local, cool. And then they just discover a whole other thing and they go from drinking maybe a steam whistle or a lug tread, and then they just move up the thing and just get nerdier and nerdier, and it's given them that opportunity to discover a whole other like realm of opportunities for craft beer, which I think is super fun. So it's great to see more of that, as long as the LCBO treats the product respectfully, which I think is always I've heard it's
A bit of a crapshoot.
Yeah, either a crapshoot or a challenge. Like, is that accurate, or has your experience been either way?
Oh yeah, like it was never my dream to be in the LCBO. Sorry, LCBO if you're watching this, but
Shouts
like
LCBO.
maintaining control over yeah, love you LCBO. Number one, love you baby. But give me more listings, give me more shelf space. But it wasn't really the dream. Like it's just like maintain control over your product, maintain freshness, maintain refrigeration, maintain like quality control over dates. So when you order directly from Rouge River, you're not getting something that's been sitting for 2 months,
Right.
or more. And typically it's, 6 weeks old, or less. Like whatever it is, whatever is new is what's in stock. And when you order from the LCBO or you walk into an LCBO, you're not necessarily getting that experience.
Right.
And that for if you're into hazy IPAs or even regular, even non-hazy IPAs, just West Coast stuff, that's just as important, really. Lagers, they're a little more forgiving, to be honest.
It's
not
very true.
super, super critical. So you can get better experiences with that being, a few months old or whatever. But as a brewer and a beer lover, like freshness and quality is like, I want everyone that drinks one of my beers to be the best experience possible. And then kind of giving that control over to someone else that doesn't necessarily feel the same way is like the worst thing ever. It's like having someone babysit your kid that you don't really know, or, you don't really trust him so much. You're just like, okay, send him home. Like maybe like be home by 9, whatever the case is. Like,
Make sure you feed them.
he'll figure it out. Yeah, he'll be okay. And you're like, well, I
It's
don't
kinda
know.
terrifying.
They might hide a case in a corner for like 3 months and lose it, and then we'll scan it into inventory. And anyways, it's kind of
You are right. It's a
you
crapshoot.
know,
Yeah.
for someone who cares so much about beer, it's not, but being in Ontario, and this is just kind of the system we have to work with, other than the independent bottle shops who we love and sell a lot of our beer, but it's just like we got to kind of we got to play the game a little bit for us where we're at right now. So we try to
Yep.
make the best of it. And we send out fresh beer to the LCBO the day it's packaged. So when it's off the line, it goes to them. But once it's in their hands, it's like kind of in their hands.
Yeah.
So
Not
it's
much you can do.
Not
that's
much,
kind of what it
not
is.
much you can do from that point until it ends up on a store's shelves, and from then until it ends up in someone's hands.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
I,
like I said, it's just in Ontario being, like I said, we're just at a point where the tap room is good, but we want to kind of spread our wings a little bit, and so we're trying to get out there. And we have great stores in London, Hamilton, Ottawa. Like we have stores, LCBO stores that order our stuff like pretty frequently. But like I said, it's like once we get it out to our distributor, who gets it to the stores, like it is what it is. But I put the love in. We try to get the highest quality product to them that we can, and then it should hold up pretty well for a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if you want
That's
the
the
best
thing.
possible experience, you come to the tap room in Markham and you hang it with me at the bar, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
everything you need to
That's
know.
all. That's ultimately it. Is that you're never going to get a better experience than actually going right to the source. And like you say, there are some great LCBO stores, but it really depends on if they happen to have a really good beer manager, if they've if they've
It's a good
hired
point.
if they've hired the right person who cares. There are some great LCBOs. I know the ones that I like to go to in Ottawa. I don't go to LCBOs very much. Like it's maybe like once or twice a year, to be honest. But like there's a couple that have really good beer managers who have really, really good stock, and the stock is surprisingly fresh. But as is the case every time, you're never going to get something fresher than going direct to the brewery.
I will
Correct.
say, I will admit this right now. Um, so on all of our products, like a lot of breweries, not a lot, I shouldn't talk anything negative, but on the bottom of all of our cans, there is a packaged on date,
I
and it
love
is
that, by
very
the way.
transparent.
Very
It
transparent.
is day, month, year.
Yep.
There is
And
no nonsense.
yeah, which is so like
A lot of
it's not as
people are
common.
scared to put that.
Yeah.
People put like Julian date codes, if you guys are familiar with those, like, the number of the
Yeah.
day of the year. People put their own proprietary codes and whatnot. I think that's a bunch of bullshit. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
No,
I
it
agree.
is. It's all
Deal with
like
it.
anything anything but something but a very clear packaged on date is just obfuscation. Like
They say
it's
you
nothing
guys
that's
may
if it's
see
not
this
very obvious.
best before or like this and that, and you're like, when's the best before? Like, what's your definition? Some breweries, like, international breweries, you know,
Often do
could be
that.
12
Yeah.
months, 24 months best before. So the beer's made almost 2 years ago. And you're like, oh, it's still good. It's 2 years old, like Pilsner from like, you know,
Yeah,
from
it's
wherever.
the best before dates don't really cut it. I noticed a lot of the larger ones do that as opposed to the packaged on date. But I feel like anything less than a packaged on date is kind of like not I was gonna say disrespectful, but just sort of inauthentic.
It's
Like
yeah,
I need to know when
a
it was
packaged
packaged.
on date. A packaged on date is the most honest.
Yeah, and look, you can have
Like
those
we
little fun typing things where you can put a little fun thing on there, but don't fuck around and not put, because I've seen some breweries just have so much fun with it that they don't even put the date. It's just like some little quote or whatever, which is cute, and I respect it, but don't replace the date with the little quote. Like the date is
Yeah.
so important because we need to know. And I've been into LCBOs and I've seen beers that were 8 months hazy IPAs that were 8 months old plus, and it's crazy. And that's typically why. But I feel like though that isn't aimed at the three of us. We are different types of consumers. We will go to the source. We will go to the Durand, to the Princess Cafe, to the Wheel Brew, to the Fourth and Seventh. We will go to these places and purchase a Dominion Friends of Dominion store. Like we will go and grab the freshest stuff because we know that the proprietors of these independent craft bottle shops have direct relationships with people like you, Jordan, and the different breweries that get it fresh. The LCBO is to attract a different consumer. Not all of them are as savvy as the hardcore beer drinker that don't even know that there's a, package on date, or should be a package on date on the bottom of the can. Every single time I walk in an LCBO, I go in those walk-in fridges. I'm just like, oh, nope. And I feel like I want to message. Most of the time, I always check the breweries of the beers of the people I know, and I want to send them a text, but like, bro, you fucking seen this shit? Like, you'll be pissed. Like, I don't always do it because I don't want to raise anybody's blood pressure, but like, it's upsetting as a consumer. I'm like, what are you doing? You're disrespecting these individuals that have sent you this stuff, and you're not treating the product with respect. And like you said, maybe they was hiding in the corner and they didn't put it out on time. Why are you selling a beer from October and it's June? Like, that's the type of stuff I'm seeing, and I've really seen that here in Hamilton, and it's crazy to me. Not even to mention the ones without the walk-in fridge that have had New England IPAs just sitting on this casual shelf in different locations. I'm like, this is just bonkers. Like, it's it's a lot of effort for the brewery to be able to keep up with that and to keep up with every store. I've had some breweries tell us in the past, years ago, that they only sell X amount to each LCBO, and if they start to ask for more, they're like, okay, well, you're selling through the other stuff? What's the dates looking like? Are you keeping them cold? And they really have to bust their chops a little bit to get that level of, what's the word? Like, I don't know, not protection, but, the beers have to be treated a certain way, and it depends on the beer manager. Like, my brother's friend's a beer manager at the one on Queen and Coxwell. I used to trade with him when coming from Montreal. I'd bring stuff for him. He'd always hook me up with the late. He's obsessed. His shit is A1 out there. That store is kill, or A5, whatever. His store is killer. A5 Wagyu. A1 Strokes, A5 Wagyu, very different. And his store is great. I've been there a couple times. I'm like, every time I go there, I'm like, oh wow, this is fantastic. Like, I could tell it was very thoughtful, the way that the beers that needed to be kept cold were in the fridge part, and the beers that didn't matter as much, like maybe some stouts or whatever, in the sort of regular part. And it was just like, all right, this was curated by somebody who knows what they're talking about, and that isn't the norm, I would say. So it's a lot of the onus is on the brewery to make sure that their product is treated as such. And as that's probably okay if you're in 5 LCBOs or 10 LCBOs, but as soon as you hit more than that, is it even possible for any brewery to realistically keep track of that and to make sure their product is being treated? I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, and so this is like the big thing. I think like the number one key, and I think this is what we do right, and a lot of, I shouldn't say, like some breweries don't do, for whatever reasons they have, is like just transparency. So like I said, it's just like we throw the date on the bottom of the can, and that might make you hate it, and it might make you love it, or it might make you indifferent, but you have the information. And like, as an experienced craft beer drinker, maybe like if you learn about freshness and how that impacts hazy IPAs or whatever style, we give you that information. And I think like doing best before dates is that's kind of smoke and mirrors type situation. Like, well, is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Is it 18 months? Is it 24 months? Like, imported beers can be up to 2, and some of the Belgian stuff, which does hold up to, 3, 5, 10 years. Sure. Yeah. Maybe that's a 10-year best before date.
Right.
Which is cool. It's legit. But when you're talking about New England IPA or West Coast IPA, that's, that should be a 3-month, best before
max
kind of situation.
Yep.
A canned
on date is really the most honest. It leaves the least open, leaves the least open to interpretation, and the least open to any kind of questions of how it's been stored, all of this other shit. It's, if you know when it's canned, you really have the most information that way.
Yeah.
Yes, I think like I said, as a beer drinker and a beer lover, it's like I want people to know, and then kind of maybe the converse side of like the consumer perspective is like maybe they give us a little more grace, saying, okay, well, it is 5 months old. Okay, it's not going to be as vibrant as it was a week out or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So we kind of bank on both of those being like, here's full transparency. We're not trying to lie to you. We're not trying to trick you. And then maybe we get, we do get those reviews like now and then. They're like, look, I know this is not fresh, and people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
take that as you will. You put it in your fridge for too long, or it was sitting on the LCBO shelf for however long. So we try to play over both ways. But like I said, like as a beer drinker, just tell me when you put it in the can, and I'll make my own call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll decide. I'll decide.
That's really what it is.
And you can decide. Yeah.
I feel like anything
Take it for
less
what
that
it
is
is.
like exactly is kind of disrespectful. Like you need to know when it is, so then you can be like, well, if this is this brewery and this style, then I'm comfortable with it being X months old, and you can sort of make your own decision. But the best before is something that I've seen more and more lately, and like I find it frustrating, just as you guys are talking about too. So I feel like the LCBO really does have an obligation to, they are the gateway, and I don't know, Nate and I talk about this a lot on the pod, but I feel like gateway is such an underrated part of craft beer because that's what's growing the community. Gateway beers and gateway, sometimes it's gateway breweries, but often it's just gateway beers. And if the LCBO isn't treating them properly, or at least, helping facilitate that conversation in some shape or form, then it's not helping craft beer grow. And that's really what all of us here really care about. We want craft beer to grow. We want more people to be involved in it and to be aware of it and to try it. And we don't want them to have a negative experience. So if they're going to go and buy an 8-month-old hazy IPA, not knowing that that's not right, how are they supposed to have a good experience? And if that's what they go, oh yeah, I had those hazy IPAs, they suck, they're all like blah blah blah, like they're not going to get a good experience. Particularly, this is some people's first exposure to this stuff. It doesn't happen as much with wine or whatever. They could go and just go through the VQA section and be like, cool, this is from Beamsville, beautiful, and grab that and it'll be fine. But it's different with beer if it's anything but maybe a lager or a stout. If it's any sort of hop focused beer, then and it's their first time trying it, and they don't know to look at the bottom of the can, and they might think it's okay, but not mind-blowing. But if you have that beer fresh, it's mind-blowing. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting. It's an unfortunate, like, catch-22 that we're all in, that they are the ones who are the gatekeepers of that gateway opportunity to new consumers, but they also don't, they don't respect it in the way that they perhaps should. So it's, just maybe it's lack of knowledge in the people who are running the beer thing. That some people are just, you go to some stores and you're like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what your beer section is. This is a joke. And then you go to some others and you're like, wow, this is amazing. This is really thoughtful. This is well positioned and stuff. So it's a crapshoot, like we also said, which is unfortunate, but I still think overall, I would imagine, and probably this is how you feel, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's the benefits outweigh the cons currently, so therefore it is worth you continuing to put particular products in the LCBO to gain those new consumers.
Yeah, like I said, like we put the freshest beer out to the LCBO. We store it cold. We brew as we need to send it out to LCBOs, which is like our big advantage. Like we're not stockpiling. Like we're not big enough to we're not big enough to brew for like 6 months and
right,
wait to send it out. Like we brew as we need to, so it goes out to the stores like as it's ordered, and it stays in our cold storage. Like we don't have a big walk-in cooler, but everything must stay cold. There's no debate about that. There's no question that any finished beer won't be refrigerated the entire time, that we have control. So yeah, we keep it refrigerated the entire time, and then we send it out as fresh as we can, and we maintain the quality like as best we can, like I said. And then ideally, like the idea is people, they get it at the LCBO and they're intrigued and they're like, oh, this is really great. They may or may not check the bottom of the can depending on their level of, savviness or concern for date codes and whatnot. And, we do the best we can, and that's all we can do for now.
Yeah.
But hopefully, when they come to the brewery or they order from our store or whatever the case is, they're going to get something special. That's and as you know, like you've been to so many breweries, when you taste brewery, like taste beer right from the source, there's something special about it, and there's something
Very
that
much so.
I don't know if you want to say. I don't know if I would say you get addicted to it. I can't really speak to that because I've been tasting beer directly from my brewery for so long, but you just can't match that level of flavor and quality.
No.
And so going to the LCBO tends to be a bit of a difficult experience unless you know what you're looking for. So there is that. But once we, at the end of the day, our goal is to get people to the brewery because that is the best experience, right? You're tasting our beer from our brewery on tap, on our lines, cleaned regularly, the highest quality, the freshest stuff. Kegs that have traveled 15 feet from the fermenter to the keg, dry hopped. So it's and the more that we can get people appreciating, whether it's fresh Pilsner, even like Pilsner, sure, like you try the German stuff, it's fine, but you try stuff made by us, it's not going across an ocean and being traveled on some kind of, tanker or whatever the case is. It's like, yeah, it's not made by Germans per se. I don't have any German lineage per se, but we got all the ingredients and we make a hell of a go at the whole thing, and it's fresher.
Couldn't agree
I feel like
more.
I'm on a rant.
No. You're right though. You
No,
could
it's
call it a
great.
rant, but you're not wrong, even in the slightest. And then the whole point of the LCBO is to inspire people to do what you just said, and that's really it. I mean, it's not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not like a huge margin in LCBO listings. It's not about this. Is people might think the brewery is this big money grab. Like, no, fam. Like, the money side of LCBO is minimal and negligible. But what it is branding and brand awareness and coming into the tap room awareness and heading to the website and ordering awareness. And that's really what you're trying to generate, is in like they discover you and be like, all right, it's sick. That's the way that craft beer works. You go to a store, and you could say this anywhere. Like, say, I don't know, we went to Rochester in February. It's the first trip we'd been in 3 years. And my friend who works at Mortalis told us to go to this store. We went to the store, and they had some killer shit. A bunch of breweries I was mildly familiar with, and I just bought a bunch of stuff. Just like I already had some other things, but I was excited to just go and try it. And it was, some of it was older, and I declined to grab the things that were older because I consider myself a savvy consumer, and there were breweries that I was a huge fan of actually, but the beers were too old for my liking, and I was like, if I told the brewery owners that that's how old it was, they probably wouldn't have been the happiest. But this was upstate New York, Western New York. It is what it is. And I was able to grab a whole bunch of stuff. And then I became fans of breweries that I didn't know of because I was mildly familiar, but willing to try and roll the dice on a bunch of stuff. And even the things that I had that maybe weren't like, oh my God, mind blowing. I knew that it was not the freshest experience. And some of the stuff, just like, say, Chris at Duran drives to different places to grab the beers every week. For the breweries, from the breweries that don't ship, because some of them ship. I imagine that you guys are actually shipping to him directly, which makes his life easier. But there's a handful that don't. So he doesn't.
He used to pick up. Now we ship him stuff like every week or a couple weeks.
Which is
he used to come by the brewery.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I love Chris so much. He's such a G, and like he cares so much, that it makes a difference in his. And that's, obviously a lot of the breweries are the same thing. Evan at the Wheel Brew and Mark at the, Sidewalk up in Kitchener and stuff do the same thing. Like, they have to physically go places. So it's, it's just one of those things. It's a different experience overall. But, it's very, very cool to sort of hear your perspective as a brewery active, both from your, from the brewery's perspective and actually putting stuff in the LCBO. I feel like we don't talk about this like a ton on here, so it's cool to get that, direct perspective on how it all works and shit. So,
Honestly, I hate
yeah.
the business, but I love the business. Like I approach it as like a business owner, but also a beer drinker, and they're very conflicted most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's
I
the
can only
worst
imagine.
thing in the world because I want to sell as much beer as possible, but I also, as a beer drinker, I want to know as much as possible, and I want as much transparency. And so, I might bite myself in the ass sometimes, but I try to cater like to an informed beer drinker. It's just like you can make your own call. Let us know if the beer is old, but put the information out there and let people make their own call. But
Yeah,
yeah, there's so
definitely.
many. Anyways, I feel like I'm about to go into like a rant or whatever, but transparency is key. So we got you
Yeah.
covered.
I agree.
Honesty is best in your labeling.
Yeah, 100%. So, Jordan, I feel like we have done really well tonight. I feel like we've gone Crispies, American Pale Ales, IPAs, sours. I feel like we've really given people a great picture of what Rouge River is doing in 2023 in comparison to 2019, which was the last time we hung out. This has been a pleasure, bro. This is great. I feel like we need to do this. We're not going to let it last 4 years again. God damn it. But this is. Thank you so much for hanging out and for for sharing the beers and for having this chat. This is really honest. I feel like I hope it gave people a real just a real maybe bit of insight into what it's like being a craft brewer and seeing what happens in the industry and
You said this was going to be 15 minutes. I think we went a little over time.
yeah, a
I gotta
little
say.
over. So I lied to you. I kept
I
you on
thought
the
I thought we
hook.
were having one beer.
I made
Yeah.
you put a shirt on for nothing. All of a sudden, 3 hours and 5 minutes. This time flew by, bro. This has been really a pleasure. I feel like we really sort of got into to a different aspect from last time of what you guys are all about. So this has been dope. This has been really great to just see the growth and also discuss some things that we don't always get to talk about on here, such as the LCBO stuff, which I think is important to talk about the pros and cons of things like that. So thank you for your transparency and for just being real about all this shit, bro. The beers are A1, A5. I'm sorry, I keep saying the A1 thing. A5. I'm gonna really look this up and really gonna make sure my my vocab is on
I'll send
point.
you links. Don't
Link
worry.
me up, my G.
If you're in Markham, I'll cook you some steak.
Maybe we can do that. Maybe
A
we
lot
can
of
organize
there's
a
a nice
steak night.
Japanese market close to I live. Don't worry about it.
Oh yeah, Markham. Yeah, that's
Oh,
where all the
bro,
Jap.
anytime.
All right, let's talk. Now I'm close
We got
by,
a
bro.
nice Japanese market.
Wasn't there something crazy, like a shooting or something at Pacific Mall recently? Something crazy like that? Was it a shooting or was it
I don't know.
there was something crazy I saw? I was like, I've been to Pacific Mall a few times. Like, god damn. Not Markham. Toronto is a wild. Not Markham. Markham is beautiful, glorious Markham. Particularly Rouge River.
Glorious market. I don't know. I don't watch the news. I don't watch the news as much. I just watch the weather
The
when
weather's the only thing that matters,
when I'm
really.
biking to work. That's about it.
Smart man, getting that exercise in.
Yeah.
So, Jordan, you're a champion. What we're going to do, we're going to take a screenshot for the thumbnail. So, do you want to hold up some cans, and then we can Nate and I will wrap up, and then we'll finish up off air. I think we're going to definitely need some hold some stuff up here. Ooh.
Baby.
Delicious. I've only got one hand, otherwise I'd hold up more, but I got two.
I can do 4 here.
Oh, come on, you got this,
If
Nate.
I,
Come on, be
if I don't
dexterous.
if I don't
Dexterous.
fucking drop them all over the place. Jeez.
There we go. Okay, you ready? Oh, that is stunning.
Hold on.
You want to do another one?
Can I get my beer?
Okay, hang on. Wait, I can take it again. Wait. Ah, shit. Hang on. Wait. Boom. There we go. Okay. Ready? Glorious. That is amazing. Bro, where can everybody find Rouge River online and in person?
Number one source, come to the brewery, Markham, 50 Bullock Drive. You'll
Don't
see
be
me there.
scared. He'll be there.
Mostly 9 to 5. I'm there 9 to 5.
I see it
We're
smiling,
open weekend, whatever. I'll be
hugging,
here. You'll actually find me behind the bar, believe it or not.
just pouring
Um,
beers, giving out
oh
hugs.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, yes. So yeah, come to the brewery. Website, rougeribrewery.com, www.rougeribrewery.com. We deliver province-wide, $15 flat rate shipping,
Bargain.
shipped by me personally, and I get it out
Personally.
as fast as I can. So give me a break if it's a little slow, but I put my heart into it.
So the
I'm a little
matters.
busy doing other stuff too. It's your boy packing everything with care, so don't forget about that.
Love and care. Kisses every
Uh,
can on the top.
bar. I kiss every box at least once before it gets picked up. Yes, and no other brewery could say that. There's no
Not
other
one.
brewery that could say
No
that.
other breweries ever said that in like
It's true.
400 episodes.
No one has, no one that we've talked to has ever said that before. That's a fact.
I take it from start to finish. I take it from conception, recipe, labeling, sometimes, not all the time. My sales rep, Dane, my boy, he works on some labels. But I will take the thing from conception, recipe, brewing to packaging day to shipping. I won't drink it with you unless you come to me. But
That's
I will
fair.
drink it with you and like sip it with you. But I'll almost take the whole thing from start to finish. We get pretty close on that.
Including the kiss on the
So,
box.
Jordan from start to finish is the Rouge River promise.
that's right. You get the whole package, baby.
Oh yeah, let's go. And
They got a little sexual there.
I know I got a little. It's okay. That's what we're here for. It's late night. It's 11:22
It's a little
p.m.
much. I don't know. Yeah, it's getting late. It's getting late. It's getting,
I'm not-
sorry.
Hey,
It's getting a little-
don't you
it's getting a
apologize.
little,
And what about
sensual
online?
here.
What about what about social? What's the social so people can come follow Rouge River?
Social? Yeah, Instagram, Rouge River Brewery.
Let's go.
On the Instas, Twitter, here and there, maybe. I hit the odd Twitter post. Facebook, just Rouge River Brewery on all the situations.
I love it.
Instagram is the primary one. Apparently, there's a TikTok account, but I don't. That's someone else is running that. I think one of
Okay.
the bartenders. So don't. That's not coming from me. If you see TikTok posts from Rouge River, don't trust that fully. Instagram is coming from me.
Okay.
So just Rouge River Brewery on Instagram is the primary source.
I'm going to tag you
Let's see.
everywhere, including TikTok, but I like it. I like that. I like the honesty. Jordan, you're a
I'm
legend.
not aware of TikTok. I don't think TikTok's a real thing.
It's whack, to
That's
be
just
honest.
my hot take.
It's okay. It's whack. I own a social media
I'm
agency,
scared of
and we
TikTok.
don't like it. We don't like it, so don't worry. It's okay. It's for the children, but we do it for the sake of it. It's okay. You do it. You put the same shit out there that you put everywhere else, and you see what happens. And it gets 270 views, like every other fucking video, and it's pointless. But you're out here. You do it. It's okay. I love it. Thank you, sir. Nathaniel, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me everywhere at NathanDoesBeer and right here on BAOS podcast.
You're goddamn right. Guys, thank you for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell, Nathaniel,
Ding.
so you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast, including on TikTok. Check out the long form audio. We drop every Wednesday with the new podcast, 7 a.m. for the audio and then 8 p.m. for the video. Right now we're in the middle. By the time you hear this, we'll still be dropping the Link Up podcast, and there'll be more coming later in the summer. Give us a 5-star on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, because otherwise Jordan will get upset. He'll be very mad. You don't want Jordan mad, because then the haze might suffer, and that's what. No, you don't want that. You don't want that at all. Folks, this was a ton of fun. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers.